Part 305. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3054. What do you think about that? Interesting. Leda and Jia Yan soon gained something. In the yin-yang sect, most disciples have average talents for most things. But those who can be sent to the border to maintain order are not too weak in strength and talent. It's quite a bit of a show-off. With this strength, Jia Yan and the others quickly found several subjects who were suitable for the experiment. However, these few are barely qualified, and they are not the most suitable candidates. Yin Yang nodded, but still wasn't too satisfied. Certainly. They didn't expect to find many elites when they came to Yin Yang sect. What I am asking for is to cast the net wide and catch more fish. This is called big data. Border areas. Lan Kuo was sitting in the training room. The foundation of Yin Yang sect is not good. The houses that most of the defenders on the border can live in are either illusions created by the shady, or ordinary training rooms that do not add much to their training. Lan Kuo is the latter, which is better than a shady training ground that looks big but actually has no support. The temptation just now should be some kind of signal. He sighed slightly in his heart. Similar temptations have continued over the years. As an emerging force, the Yin-Yang sect has to endure a lot of things. There is also a lot of pressure. Under the leadership of Yin-Yang, the leader of the Yin-Yang sect, the aura of swallowing up mountains and rivers disappeared. After all, Yin and Yang are not really in the Yin and Yang sect. Yin-Yang, who still occasionally appeared on the main peak, has not appeared again for many years. There are even rumors from those with malicious intentions that Yin Yang was injured in the outside world and has already passed away on the main peak. It is impossible for the master to disappear after his physical death, but we brothers and sisters have discussed that Yin and Yang may not be the real master. Although Lan Kuo and the others did not increase in strength that fast, their horizons broadened a lot. They have roughly made a judgment about their master's affairs. For example, the friend that master invited here. Judging from his outward aura, he is almost the same as his master, and his methods of doing things are even somewhat similar. So they came to a bold conclusion: the master is probably not a real life form, but the clone of another strong man. This secret, after they initially discussed it, remained silent from then on. It would have been better to keep it a secret from everyone in the beginning. Master, I don't know if I am optimistic about the Yin-Yang section. If those powerful men from the free world pass by a certain place and create a Taoism according to their temperament, and then ignore it, our life will be really sad. Lan Kuo stared and thought. He is already the fourth disciple, and among the true disciples, his strength is also ranked high. Therefore, when the master is hidden in the world and most of the other brothers are not as strong as him, he represents the section consider a lot. Puff. Just when he was thinking, a figure appeared in front of a flower. Who? Lan Kuo, who was frowning, felt his body and mind sink, and looked at the incoming man in great horror. He didn't even sense the slightest sign of how this person appeared. It seemed that if the other party had not taken the initiative to show up and he was attacked, he would have been severely injured without even knowing how he died. An unrivaled powerhouse. He looked around in fear, but his eyes soon showed surprise. What followed was great joy. Master. The visitor's old turtle appearance, the faint aura of dying, and the calm expression are none other than the founding master of the Yin-Yang sect, Yin Yang. When he saw his master appearing, he thought about the road ahead for the Yin-Yang sect that he was still struggling with just now, and recalled how many disciples had worked hard over the years to maintain the Yin-Yang sect's orthodoxy. For a moment, Lan Kuo's eyes suddenly turned red. Knelt down in great grievance. I've met Master. These years, Master, where have you been? We brothers and sisters, our lives have been so difficult. It was like he was seeing his parents' child. He vented his grievances in one breath, and when he got to the emotional point, he burst into tears. Okay, I know all these things, and I won't do it again. Jia Yan also felt a little sorry. Although he had his own reasons for this matter, to the disciples, it was indeed not a human matter. Any master who accepts a disciple will soon leave him alone. Of course, there are still many, and Jia Yan has done more than this in the past. For example, in some areas, after taking care of an outsider halfway, he will leave without leaving a word. Another example is the recruitment of subordinates who never met again after being dispersed. Jia Yan is pretty good, he has seen a lot of ruthless strong men, and there are countless others who are more exaggerated than himself. At least he's back. I'm sorry, the apprentice is too excited. Lan Kuo confided for a moment, then came back to his senses a little embarrassed. After so many years, God knows if master still has a good impression of them. Crying and crying caused the master's impression to deteriorate and he drifted away. His sin was huge. Although I won't stay too long when I return this time, I will take care of the crisis you are facing. Don't worry, I will be with you in everything. Jia Yan said with great awe. Lan Kuo couldn't help but feel the strength of Jia Yan's yin and yang clone. However, he only felt an ocean as powerful as an abyss. Unfathomable. It's not the kind of feeling that's so powerful that even if he senses it, he'll get a backlash. It's a calm feeling, like a vast ocean, and it doesn't do anything to you, but you are like an ant seeing the ocean in front of him. Too strong to be described in words. Master, what is your strength? Lan Kuo couldn't help but ask. At first, they only knew Jia Yan as an injured strong man from the outside world. Until Jia Yan showed great power, killed many local strong men, and then floated away, they did not understand how strong Jia Yan was. Now that they haven't seen each other for decades, Lan Kuo feels that the master's strength is far from his original strength. It is impossible that the master has been promoted to great strength in so many years. It must be that the master who left at the beginning has not fully recovered. Now, decades have passed, and the injuries have completely recovered. How could Jia Yan not know what these disciples were thinking? He wasn't worried either. It is human nature for disciples to want to find out about their master's strength. Moreover, they have suffered too much grievance and pressure over the years, and now they feel uneasy and always want a reassurance. Don't worry, you don't have to be timid when doing things in the future. I won't explain my strength to you for the time being. In short, it's more than enough for you to travel across the backward starry sky, even in the outside world. When Jia Yan said this, he didn't say anything about showing off. Lan Kuo couldn't laugh or cry. Master Zindao still kept it secret, but he didn't want to say it, maybe because he was afraid that they would become unstable after hearing it. After all, if they knew that their master was so powerful, how could they have the mentality to practice hard? Maybe it will start to float. Wouldn't it be disappointing to master? By the way, I have to pass the news of your return, master, to a few brothers. Lan Kuo quickly asked Jia Yan if he could be summoned. After receiving Jia Yan's affirmative answer, he happily spread the message. This is a normal reaction after getting a backer. Even the border areas that Lan Kuo guarded conscientiously were slacking off. But Jia Yan himself is here, why are he afraid of foreign enemies? Just kidding. Even if a strong man came who would force Jia Yan to retreat, no matter how vigilant his disciples were, they would not be able to stop him. What? Master is back. Marvelous. Our hard times are over. Not long after, the brothers who were waiting at several key places in the Yin-Yang sect received the news, and everyone was overjoyed with surprise. After all, this is absolutely great news for the Yin-Yang sect and themselves. Oh! You brothers and sisters are taking turns entering the Yin-Yang star. Jia Yan took advantage of the fact that the other disciples had not yet come to meet him and asked Lan Kuo many things. Only then did he realize that the subspace planet he had left on the Yin-Yang star where he understood the Yin-Yang Dao had now become the Yin-Yang sect's greatest treasure. Countless people from the Yin-Yang sect dreamed of entering that world. It is not only a paradise for cultivation, but also a place of peace. After entering, a huge amount of money was consumed, but there were still countless disciples, or rich people from outside who applied to enter, trying to get in. Not only does Yin-Yang Dao practice progress very quickly there, but more importantly, entrants rarely have to experience the dangers of Yin-Yang sect. You know, the rise of the Yin-Yang sect is not peaceful. This has also led to the fact that after the current situation has stabilized, the forces that were once targeted by the Yin-Yang sect have returned to their glory. After regaining their composure, they often cause destruction around the Yin-Yang sect and even within the Yin-Yang sect. Some of them are still from the territory conquered by the Yin-Yang sect. They belong to the people after being ruled, but they are nostalgic for their former masters and have been carrying out sabotage activities. The Yin-Yang sect cannot directly deal with them and kill all the people, which leads to a lot of internal conflicts and dangers. But when you enter the holy land of Yin-Yang sect's cultivation, similar situations will almost never happen. I and several other fellow apprentices are divided into two groups. Usually there are at least 3 people outside, responsible for the operation of the section. Of course, a lot of the credit depends on the various talents who join the sect later, and even some strong ones. The strength is not weaker than ours, there are even stronger ones. When Lan Kuo mentioned the stronger, his words were complicated. Jia Yan immediately grasped the key point and said calmly, "Then are these stronger people obedient?" Lan Kuo was speechless for a moment. Looking at the master, he smiled bitterly and said, "Master, please punish me, I'll wait. I could restrain them before, but in recent years, they have shown some signs of turning away from guests." Jia Yan nodded. "Let's solve it together this time." Lan Kuo felt awestruck. He knew that Master Yin Yang seemed to have a pleasant appearance, but his methods were definitely not that of a benevolent person. When the Yin Yang sect rose up, it abruptly wrested its territory from several factions. There was no such thing as a peaceful rise in the process. By the way, Master, we have recently received information that there is a peerless master from the outside world, who is so strong that even we can't imagine. He wants to enter the star field with ulterior motives. Lan Kuo actually received this kind of news. It seems that someone who wants to harm the Yin-Yang sect has never thought of hiding information. Either that or the current intelligence system of the Yin-Yang sect is already quite outstanding. Jia Yan, no matter what kind. He just nodded calmly and said, "How dare you call yourself a peerless master even if you are a junior domain lord?" This time, Lan Kuo was shaken all over. He looked at his master in disbelief. When he talked about domain lord level information just now, he was hesitant. Because he was not sure whether the master, the only backer, would shrink back after knowing that a domain lord was involved in the next incident that might target the Yin-Yang sect. He has a home all over the world, and it would be understandable if he doesn't want to become an enemy of a territory lord for the power he created casually. But these local strongmen of the Yin-Yang sect were born here and grew up here. Their family and the people behind them are deeply involved. If the master leaves them alone and a domain lord level existence comes, not only the Yin-Yang sect will fall apart, but also themselves. As well as the family and friends behind him, may all suffer disaster. So Lan Kuo seemed a little hesitant when he spoke. But what he didn't expect was that when it came to the domain lord level, Jia Yan still didn't take him seriously. How can this be? Territory lord level existences are no different from gods to the backward starry sky. For who knows how many years, there has been no territory lord level existence at all, and it has come to the backward starry sky. How strong is the master? Could it be? Is it also a domain lord level? Even people above the domain lord level. Thinking of this, Lan Kuo quickly shook his head and wiped away all his wishful thinking. He only knows about the territory lord level. What are the divisions of strength at the territory lord level, what are the levels above the territory lord level, and what methods does the territory lord level have, but he doesn't know anything about these. Okay, what you said is not a trivial matter. Now that the master has given you a new mission, you have also announced it to the entire yin-yang section. This matter is more important than the arrival of the first level existence of the regional master. Hearing this, Lan Kuo's expression suddenly became heavy. Even master said it was a big thing. I'm afraid it's not a small incident. Even the first level of territory lord can't compare with it. It may be a major event that may cause a life and death crisis for the entire yin-yang sect. After listening to Jia Yan's story with a solemn expression, his expression became weird again. Master, you mean, you want me to choose certain disciples? Good. That's it? Lan Kuo was extremely weird. He thought there was some kind of war, but he didn't expect that he would be asked to choose his disciples. Seeing that he couldn't understand, Jia Yan shook his head and said, "Don't underestimate this matter. I have found a plan again. I need the help of my disciples to make up for the shortcomings of Yin-Yang Dao in some aspects, greatly enhance the strength of the cultivators, and have a great influence on the entire Yin-Yang section." Speaking of words, it is also related to Taoism, and its influence is far-reaching, so this matter is very important, and you must not ignore it. Disciple naturally doesn't dare not be interested. Lan Kuo nodded repeatedly. Not to mention what Jia Yan said, it made him ecstatic. After all, the yin and yang Dao became stronger again. It shows that his future prospects are also broader. As long as he said that this matter was told by his master, there was no way he would not take it seriously. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3055. Yin and Yang are properly arranged. He casually entered a secret practice room. Lan Kuo, on the other hand, went out and started preparations in high spirits. There are priorities in this matter. Jia Yan also told him that if he concealed his return a little, the demons and ghosts who were secretly hostile to the Yin-Yang sect would be exposed. After Jia Yan lured the snakes out of the cave and killed them all, the Yin-Yang sect could publicize it in a high-profile way. Rita, what do you think of my disciple? Jia Yan was sitting in the secret room, speaking into a vacuum that seemed to be empty of people. Accompany this voice. In an area that everyone thought was uninhabited, a behemoth measuring more than 30 kilometers long suddenly appeared. He was just hanging alone outside the secret room, and many passers-by kept walking around this strong man, but they ignored him, passed by him, and ignored his existence. Sir, this disciple of yours is probably something you are quite satisfied with. It's a pity that his talent seems to be. Leda weighed her words and expressed her opinion. Jia Yan nodded, yes, his talent is too low. I'm afraid that in this life, stellar level will be his peak. Having said that, Jia Yan was also very sorry. Lan Kuo was originally a subspace gifted creature. He had gone through the test before becoming his disciple. This shows that not only does his talent in subspace match him, but he also has an extraordinary fit in terms of his ability to understand Yin and Yang Dao. The most regrettable thing is that his talent is probably stronger than the second disciple Biha among the disciples. He is as different as his third disciple Ryan. Sir, you mean? Leda thought of something and suddenly spoke in surprise. Jia Yan nodded without changing his expression. Leda's face moved, but then he said nothing. Anyway, he is not his disciple. If you want to use it to test the power of the formation, then let him do it. Presumably, the junior star named Lan Kuo was very happy to be the subject of his master's research. The strong man's grasp of people's hearts is far beyond imagination. They had just met for the first time, and just by hearing the other person's behavior and conversation, he knew that this Lan Kuo respected his teacher. Not to mention respecting teachers and respecting teachers, just talking about the attributes of array formations that enhance lifespan and talents is enough to impress the opponent. Who doesn't want to build a broad path for himself? In the secret room, Jia Yan transformed into an old turtle with twinkling eyes. I wasn't thinking about the disciples anymore. If things continue to be arranged, with his current prestige and control within the Yin-Yang sect, it will not take long for a disciple who is willing to be a research subject to appear. What he was thinking about was another thing. In this backward star field, let alone domain lord level existence, even the middle level powerhouses of the galaxy will not come here, especially if they have nothing to do. Even the beginners of the outside world with normal strength walk around this kind of place. Jia Yan is very curious. Is it true that the existence of the first level territory lord only entered the backward star territory because he wanted to know the secrets of the Yin-Yang sect? This is like a normal person who cannot use the toilet at home and goes to the extremely dirty toilet outside. It is not an exaggeration to compare the backward star field to a toilet. At least in the eyes of the life forms in the Milky Way central star region, this place is not even as good as a toilet. Only he and Leda, who came from a place that was even more backward than this, would enter the backward star field from time to time, because they didn't hate it in the first place. If this person has ulterior motives, Jia Yan's first reaction was that someone with such originality should be Concubine Kun. At first, she stalked him and followed him to the Orion Arm. She also stirred up troubles near the Orion Arm, attracting the power of the Bai family and changing directions to create the strength of the lower level of her territory lord. Speaking of which, he didn't know whether he was grateful to her or whether he considered her an enemy. If this matter is related to Concubine Kun, then we must deal with it carefully. If she shows up, I can kill her. Jia Yan didn't think that he really had any feelings for the so-called Concubine Kun. The other party deliberately lured the white dolphin to fight with him, allowing him to step into the lower steps of the territory lord. This was a favor, and he could repay it if he had the chance, but only this time. Besides, Jia Yan has limits. If she repeatedly breaks her limits, no matter who she is, she will not be lenient. Thinking of this, Yin Yang transmitted all his discoveries and experiences to the location of Jia Yan's true body through a specific channel. The avatar and the real body are so troublesome, especially when the distance is too large and the avatar's self-awareness is too strong. It is almost no different from two independent personalities. Of course, Jia Yan has already had concerns in this regard, so he is naturally prepared for the next step. In short, the real body received the information transmitted by the clone. Maybe it's the domain lord level who's coming for me. The real body was just a little surprised, and then continued to practice absent-mindedly. A junior regional master is not worth a cent in his current eyes. If a person does come and finds something wrong, he can just stab him to death with one claw. The lower level of territory lord is so unreasonable. Because the few existences above the territory lord are not born, they are the truth. I don't care about the real body, but I know the yin and yang side very clearly. Maybe it would be right for me to come and deal with the domain lord level. The clone's strength is not too far behind that of a domain lord. Without using his true form, Yin Yang would most likely not be able to defeat Leda. After all, Leda is also an intermediate territory lord. Although he is only a newly promoted intermediate, it is still an intermediate level. Moreover, he has also converted to Yin-Yang Dao and has some power of formations in his body. If he really wants to take action, Jia Yan believes that he, with an existence that has been in the middle level of territory lord for hundreds of years, you can stretch out your hands. Therefore, his clone can be regarded as a good opponent against the coming territory lord's primary level. At this moment, almost everyone in the upper echelons of the Yin-Yang sect was overjoyed. If it hadn't been for that person who wanted to play a long game to catch the big fish, they would have already informed the whole sect, put up lanterns and decorations, and publicized it. After all, the sect leader whose head and tail the dragon has never seen has come again. This is almost the biggest good news for the entire yin-yang sect in decades. The strength of the sect leader has long been verified. And those battle displays are not enough to prove the sect leader's limit. I am afraid that the sect leader's ability is still unfathomable. With such a powerful person returning to protect them, what else do they have to fear? I don't know if Master, the old man, can fight against a domain lord level. The territory lord level is still a bit uncertain. We are behind the star territory, but there is no record of the territory lord level. Yes, if our sect master hadn't been strong enough and other sects had opened up the knowledge limits to us, I'm afraid we still wouldn't know that there is such a thing as a domain lord level. Even if it's not as good as it is, Master can definitely deal with it. Several disciples who were practicing on the yin-yang sect's holy land gathered together. They rarely frowned. Among them is the rabbit girl who is now looking more and more like a girl, and is also Jia Yan's great disciple Billy. There is also the little disciple at the time, who was also the most extremely talented being, Beast. There is also Billy's sibling Biha. The three of them are by far the weakest among Jia Yan's 6 yin-yang sect disciples. It is said that several true disciples took turns to enter the Holy Land to practice, but Lan Kuo and the others often gave the opportunity to the three of them. Billy's talent is quite good, but she has only cultivated to the beginning of the venerable level. When Beast came to Jia Yan's sect, his strength was just that of a beginner, but now he has made rapid progress, reaching the middle level of the venerable, overpowering Billy. On the other hand, Biha, who was at the venerable level at the time, is still at the venerable level today, a small step up. Without Jia Yan's personal guidance and without Jia Yan's use of certain techniques from time to time, the cultivation speed of all disciples has slowed down. But they won't blame anything. Being able to gain the love of Master, enter the yin-yang sect, and change one's destiny against the will of heaven is already a matter of great luck. To bite off more than you can chew and to push for more than you can chew is a sign of ignorance. When Master returns, I will wait for him out of the Holy Land to greet him. The little unicorn beast is very happy. He was very afraid of strangers at first, but over the past few decades, his temper has improved a little. Billy shook her head. Master has told Lan Kuo not to act rashly. Nowadays, the yin-yang sect is facing serious internal and external troubles. Master may not stay with us for too long, so he is prepared to eliminate as many hidden dangers as possible at once. You really can't take it lightly, lest those guys escape. Beer nodded. The three of them all knew who those guys they were talking about were. In the yin-yang sect, after decades of development, their 6 direct disciples are far from the only powerful ones. The other strong men have spread their wings after joining. Although they have converted to yin-yang Dao, there are still many people whose identities are quite unclean. There are also those who want to touch the cakes of their direct disciples, or who are eyeing their identities. Those people were originally worried about the existence of yin-yang. Until a few years ago, there were rumors circulating that yin-yang might have been severely damaged when he sneaked into the backward starry sky. The reason why he has not appeared in these years is because he has already been in yin-yang. Sitting on the peak, he melted. I don't know if the rumors were spread by someone with ulterior motives. In short, there was an uproar about the true teaching at that time, and by the time the disciples responded with a stern rebuttal and strictly controlled public opinion, it was already too late. The rumors are getting more and more intense. In the end, certain forces were persuaded and began to act aggressively. Several times, they used the excuse that they had not seen the sect leader for a long time, or that they had never seen the true face of the sect leader, to go to Yin-Yang Peak to meet the old man of the sect leader. Little did the disciples know that Master was no longer in that small peak building. Therefore, in order to prevent powerful people from attending the meeting, they were very worried and came up with many excuses. In the past 2 years, because they were frequently questioned, their status has plummeted, and many of their real powers have been lost. And now, Jia Yan's meaning is very simple. That is to let all these clowns appear in one go. He would help his disciples resolve external and internal troubles in one fell swoop. Alas, we can't help Master solve our problems. Decades have passed and Master still has to come to help us. It's simply too incompetent. Biha sighed. Beast looked at Biha, a little funny. Second senior brother, you like to think so much when you are middle-aged. If you have this kind of energy, why not practice hard? As your strength increases, are you afraid that you will not be able to repay the Master? That's right, Billy said with a grin. Junior brother Beast and I may still be able to assist Master in the future. Junior brother Biha, if you don't work hard, you may not have many opportunities. Biha glanced sideways at the senior sister. You know, before he became a senior sibling, he was Billy's uncle. This little thing, now that she has been a senior sister for decades, dares to ridicule herself openly. Then tell me, what kind of strength can help Master? Biha questioned. In my opinion, Master's strength, even if he is not as strong as a territory lord, is still at the beginning or even the middle level of the galaxy. Billy analyzed it logically, so we must at least have the strength of a high-level star to be able to enter the Master's Dharma eyes. As she said this, she suddenly felt a headache when she thought that she was only at the venerable level, and if she wanted to practice to the star level, she would have to practice for at least 100 years. It will take 100 or even hundreds of years before I can help Master. It will take a long, long time. Biha shook his head in a pretentious manner. Senior sister, you are overthinking this. If you can assist the Master with just a star level, then why didn't the Master take junior brother Lankuo with him before he left them? When Jia Yan left, Lankuo and the others also had stellar combat power. Then what do you mean? Billy was a little unhappy. Biha became serious and said word by word, it can be seen that the Master's strength is far from what you and I thought. I am afraid that it is not the junior and middle level of the galaxy, but has at least entered the territory lord level. Hearing this, Billy and Beast's breath froze for a moment. They looked at each other, and then fell silent. They know even less about the domain lord level. Even Aopin, who has been out to the outside world for many years, knows that there is something ominous about the territory lord level, let alone a few weak direct disciples who are protected like ladies in the sect. If Master is really at the territory lord level, or someone above territory lord, we really can't help Master. Billy shook her head. Biha said with some comfort, you are wrong about this. When Master took us in and taught us the yin and yang Tao, he probably did not ask us to contribute anything. Now what we have to do is to work hard to cultivate the yin and yang Tao, and if you push this avenue of deduction to the limit, this is what can best repay the Master, do you understand? Billy seemed to realize something. Beast was slightly confused. Compared to Billy, Beast, the young disciple, is younger and has experienced less battles. He can only understand half of what is said. Junior brother Biha, if you have better talent, you may be able to go a step further, and maybe you can cultivate to the star level with us. Biha waved his hands repeatedly and said with a wry smile, forget it, I'm afraid that in my life, I will only reach the semi-star level at most. I don't know when I will be able to break through the venerable level, let alone the star level. It still depends on weight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3056. Biha felt bitter. Just because his talent was the weakest among all his disciples, he had lived a very depressed life over the years. None of his direct disciples dared to blatantly bully him, but he had experienced many sarcasm in private and even in person. This has led to Biha, in these years, in addition to practicing, he often ran to read some books. He was not strong enough and used principles to increase his sense of existence and ability. Otherwise, it would be impossible to tell what happened just now. Don't worry, senior brother, maybe when Master comes back this time, he might be able to think of some way to improve your qualifications. There is no need to comfort senior brother. Now we are not the Wusyaman before. Can we not understand whether there is a way to enhance our qualifications? Even if there is, the price is definitely not something we can afford, so we still don't want it. I've thought so much. Biha smiled bitterly again. He once dreamed of improving his qualifications, but after calming down and thinking about it, he gave up such fantasies. Throughout the galaxy, there are so many creatures stuck at the weak level because of their qualifications. If there are any treasures that can improve their qualifications, they must have been used by those with great influence for their heirs and disciples. It is not impossible for Master to get such an opportunity. But the relationship between him and Biha can't be said to be that of a master, a disciple, and a filial piety. Even if the two sides are not indifferent, they are definitely not at the level where yin and yang are willing to compete for some gift for him. In fact, his guess was accurate. How could Jia Yan do this for Biha? There are indeed things to improve talent in the outside world, but this kind of thing is a top treasure even among superstars. If Jia Yan really gets it, it is only for his wife and son to use, and it will never be his turn no matter what. If he really values the yin-yang sect, Jia Yan will not pass by it a few times, nor will he enter this backward star field. Therefore, no matter how he makes excuses, the only reason why he will return to yin-yang sect is not nostalgia, but an ulterior motive. Nothing fancy. Jia Yan is such a person. How? Starry sky. A huge figure was swimming in the sea of stars. The shuttle-like object swept across a large area in panic all day long. This creation is a flying treasure rarely used by powerful creatures in the galaxy. After all, it is too difficult for creatures that are often dozens of kilometers long to have a flying creature that can carry their bodies. From this, it can also be seen from the side how rich the owner of this shuttle-like creation is. The yin-yang sect is rumored to have a so-called magic weapon. This thing is very important to me. Among the shuttle instruments, a creature with an extremely thick aura and a body shape similar to that colorful toad was silently imagining. After hearing about the yin-yang sect, he inquired a lot about it. And after knowing many inside stories about the yin-yang sect, he quickly became excited. The cultivation path of yin-yang sect does not have much in common with him. But the so-called yin-yang sect's magical weapon was something that he was quite amazed by. This toad creature is nicknamed Master Vessel. Known to be interested in all kinds of utensils. He also relied on his skills in using various artifacts, and finally went from a being with mediocre talent and strength to the domain lord level, becoming a huge evil in one side. Master, the yin-yang sect will definitely satisfy you. Beside, the giant mechanical bird spoke in compliments. The toad laughed happily and whirled the giant bird-like machine a few times, as if it was playing with a toy. The giant bird looked like he was enjoying himself immensely. Under the flight of this artifact, they flew into the backward starry sky at lightning speed. The big shot is coming tomorrow. You must not give me any trouble. Yes. The first few major forces in the backward starry sky have been nervous for several days. Ever since they knew that a territory lord-level general might be coming, these named forces raised their hearts to their throats one by one. Amidst their nervousness, they also felt a sense of excitement at having been favored by a powerful person. You know, that is the domain lord level. To them, the strength of a domain lord is like a god. If the other party is willing to give them some guidance, or is willing to accept some of them as direct subordinates, it will be enviable. Even the leaders of these forces are absolutely willing to give up their current status for the sake of their future. After all, it was the domain lord level. coming. While the lords of these forces and their subordinates were all busy and nervous, an intelligence officer who was monitoring the outside world suddenly broke into the area where the lords of several major forces were located. Everyone stop what they are doing and wait with me to welcome Senior. The masters of power were shocked, and they quickly sent out brainwave power voices in all directions. Before he finished speaking, the mighty laughter of a strong man came from far away. I am very satisfied with how polite you are. Several power leaders looked at each other with joy in their hearts. Judging from this voice alone, the coming territory lord should be a very talkative being. Until the huge metal shuttle-like object flew in front of all living things like an asteroid, these leaders of the forces breathed a sigh of relief. I can finally feel relieved. Although the colorful toad creature is a bit uncomfortable in its colorful colors, its temperament has a pleasant appearance, which gives people a considerable sense of comfort. The so-called appearance comes from the heart. This makes sense when it comes to alien powerhouses. Although you can disguise, generally speaking, a top powerhouse does not need to disguise anything. In other words, this toad creature should be a being with a relatively good temperament. I am the master of the vessel, you may call me the master of the vessel, or you may call me the vessel directly. In any case, feel free to do so. Haha, Sir Uzi is the leader, so naturally we will call our seniors Sir. Sir, I have always communicated by voice before. I didn't expect that your true face is as kind as we imagined. All the strong men must pat their horses and flatter them as much as they can. This territory lord level existence must have enjoyed similar pursuits. He was not carried away at the moment, but quickly got to the point with his usual expression. Then where is the Yin-Yang sect, and what is their current situation? Most of the several power lords are at the beginning of the galaxy. In this backward place, the beginning of the galaxy may not even be able to defeat the star peaks from the outside world. So under the gaze of a dignified domain lord, they felt a lot of pressure. Since this big shot didn't even want to take a second look at the environment they carefully arranged, he must have disdained the environment here. They are not disappointed or anything. They are dignified domain masters. They have never seen anything and are looked down upon. It does not mean that their previous efforts and others have been in vain. You may be considered disrespectful if you don't do it. Guzi. Seniors have come from afar, and we have prepared some pretty good things in our star field. Although they will definitely not catch the eyes of seniors, there are also some strange and weird things. Maybe seniors can take a fancy to them. No, I'm fine. The strong man laughed happily and directly rejected the invitation from the leader of the forces. As a lover of utensils or various utensils, he has spent almost all his life traveling and searching in the major starry skies. Not to mention one backward star field, he has gone to explore and search even 10 backward star fields. But it is not without reason that the backward star regions are often so unpopular. He went there 10 times and was disappointed 10 times. So this time, he simply went straight to the topic. He didn't want to waste time on other things. My lord, please speak quickly. I will lead the way from the front. Hurry up. As he spoke, the strong toad looked a little anxious and shouted. He was already looking forward to it. He had obtained one of the Yin-Yang Dao magic weapons before. It was a small combat tool made by a very weak star-level disciple. Although the increase in combat power was nothing, beating him revealed infinite possibilities from the rough training method. He even thought that if the so-called Yin-Yang was not as powerful as himself, he would capture him and study the artifacts for him. Serve as the dedicated weapon refining master of his master utensil. Maybe he could come up with a magical weapon that would be effective even for domain lord level experts. Then, he would be able to straighten his back in front of the passage. Within the Yin-Yang sect, you have been studying this so-called positive and negative force for decades, but you have gone astray. Alas, it's my fault that I didn't teach it clearly at the beginning. Listen, The power of positive and negative is a power developed step by step by accidentally swallowing an antimatter tree when my sect leader was weak. You and others only regard it as antimatter, anti-power, or something that violates the normal mind. Everything is wrong. Jia Yan sat at the top, explaining the key to yin and yang Tao to Lan Kuo and several border garrison soldiers and talented disciples below. In fact, he was also a little helpless. Although he knew that the yin-yang sect would definitely go astray decades after he left, he never expected that it would go astray so badly. The original meaning of yin-yang sect has been gradually distorted by later generations. It's not that they think superficially, which makes Onmyo-do go astray. Quite the opposite. These disciples in the yin-yang sect think too highly of yin-yang Dao, so every sentence, every line, and even the change of every word in the cultivation techniques left by Jia Yan are overly understood. The extra words the sect master wrote here indicate that the sect master is hinting that everyone should not be arrogant, and the steps should be carried out completely, and don't think about taking shortcuts and so on. When Jia Yan heard these explanations before, he felt helpless. What I left behind is the cultivation skills, which are like guiding lights, rather than asking you to use words to make everyone find fault. But after thinking about it carefully, he came to some understanding. Since Jia Yan himself was not too concerned about teaching, they really had no better way to practice yin and yang Tao other than to mention the words. Unless everyone has great wisdom and great opportunities, they can understand Jia Yan's insights between the lines. But obviously, not everyone has this talent. Moreover, even if there were, other disciples would beat him up and say that you shouldn't understand it that way. The sect master definitely didn't mean it like that, and even a genius would become a fool. Fortunately, he slipped back at the critical moment. It has only been a few decades now. If he comes back after 100 years, the yin-yang sect will be completely crooked, and even he may be helpless. What master said made me suddenly enlightened. Lan Kuo is a disciple with excellent character. After some enlightenment, he seems to have gained something. The other disciples who were quite talented were also thoughtful and understood the truth. Well, you are all geniuses with excellent cultivation talents in the yin-yang section. It is quite gratifying to be able to understand what I am saying. However, when you return to the sect, don't be too self-conscious. If other disciples ask you about these insights, you must complete, preach to others. Do you understand what I mean? Understood. Lan Kuo and others responded hurriedly. In fact, the Union sect has not reached the point where it is self-respecting. It has only been a few decades, and there is always pressure from the outside world, so except for those forces within the sect with evil intentions, generally speaking, they will not be stingy with the secrets of yin and yang Tao that they have learned. Hello, everyone is really good. This is the current collective thinking of the yin-yang sect. Well, Jia Yan was about to continue saying something, when he suddenly listened carefully, with a look that seemed to be a smile but not a smile. Okay, you can have a good understanding when you go back. The yin-yang sect has a distinguished guest. I will go out to meet you. Huh? Distinguished guest. Lan Kuo was startled. Then he was suddenly startled. What kind of existence would make Master say meet him in person? It must be the so-called foreign domain lord who is coming. With an ugly face, he asked several talented disciples to leave, but he stayed. Master, I don't know, are you sure? Jia Yan couldn't laugh or cry. He glared at the disciple angrily. You are said to be mature and steady, but you are not confident in your master. You will not want this in the future. To put it bluntly, my master is no different from you. Will you fight with enemies who cannot be defeated? Since you can't even wait, why are you stupid and fighting against that kind of existence? When Lan Kuo was told this, his face turned red and he nodded quickly and said, Disciple understands. He got it? The meaning of the master's words is that the master does not think that he will lose to the coming territory lord level. At the same time, Lan Kuo also felt a little happy in his heart. After all, this is the first time that he has received a clear statement of his strength from his master. Domain Master level. In other words, ordinary Domain Lord level might not be taken seriously by the master. While he was thinking about it, he saw the yin and yang transformed into an old turtle, that is, Jia Yan's clone. After leaving a faint instruction, the subspace in front of him opened up, and he entered it with an old-fashioned move. The next moment, a huge creature that even Lan Kuo could sense entered the border between yin and yang Dao and hostile forces. What is this? What a huge man-made creation! Lan Kuo was stunned. As a creature in a backward star field, he naturally has not seen many possessions of powerful people from the outside world. To him, such a huge building is no different than a scientific miracle. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3057. Not only him, but many creatures in this border area and the Nyoda border also noticed the huge metal flying towards them. Everyone was stunned and felt as if they were falling into a dream. However, just when this giant artifact wanted to act grandly, it ignored the border line of yin-yang sect and directly crushed it into the interior of the area. A figure that was so small that it could not be seen silently appeared at the front of this giant metal shuttle that was more than 1,000 kilometers away. Compared to the metal shuttle, his figure is like a small ant, inconspicuous at all. However, as soon as this figure appeared, he suddenly shouted in an old-fashioned manner, "Stop!" The entire shuttle utensil suddenly shook. The forward trend seemed to hit an invisible wall and suddenly stopped with a loud clang in the vacuum of the universe. The entire interior of the shuttle creation was in chaos. A large number of metal service machines, various metal toys, and some combat weapons made of metal were all knocked to pieces by the sudden impact. Lost heavily. Who, an expert, dares to intercept a senior's car? While Jia Yan was waiting and the toad in the shuttle object was talking, he saw another extremely weak zinc beginner jumping out from inside the shuttle object. As if triggering a chain effect, after this powerful beginner of the galaxy appeared, a series of beginners of the galaxy jumped up. They pointed at Jia Yan's bad behavior, and some of them were even eager to try, as if they wanted to show their loyalty and bravery in front of the toad creature. Jia Yan was not familiar with these people, but the faces of Lan Kuo and other yin-yang sect disciples behind him quickly became ugly. They recognized the numerous newcomers to the galaxy. They are all the masters of the largest forces in this backward starry sky. At the same time, they are also among the top super powerful factions in the entire backward star field. Lan Kuo's expression became solemn. The yin-yang sect in the past would never be able to deal with so many galaxy beginners. Even if only one person comes, I am afraid that the yin-yang sect will have to use all the means, using some of the means left by Jia Yan, to be able to resist the opponent slightly, or even be destroyed. The reason why it has been sustained for so many years is just because the afterglow of yin-yang still protects the yin-yang sect. Can Master deal with these guys? Lan Kuo's expression was uncertain. He was suddenly a little unsure. Really facing the momentum of a domain lord, he found that his imagination was too simple. The territory lord level is by no means an ordinary existence, but just observing its aura from a distance gives you a feeling of doomsday. And my master? To be honest, yin-yang also leaked a little aura, but the feeling of this aura, it doesn't look like it can deal with the domain lord level. Lan Kuo did not dare to exaggerate his worries and comforted himself, this should be master showing weakness to the enemy. But his guess was right. The strength of Jia Yan's clone is not at the level of a domain lord. This is true in terms of energy. The actual strength is hard to say. After all, he had previously used his clones to kill many domain lord level beings. So overall, this yin-yang clone still has a chance to kill a domain lord level powerhouse. How dare you, ants and rats, fight? When the group of stars first appeared, Jia Yan's yin and yang avatar kept his gaze unwavering, and could even say that he turned a blind eye, waving his arms like he was waving away flies. But this random move caused an extremely shocking response. There is a positive and negative force between heaven and earth, and suddenly it appears in a turbulent way. This positive and negative force did not kill many primary stars in front of them in one go, but quickly sketched in the air and gradually turned into a circle shape. The pattern was extremely ancient and complicated. Lan Kuo, who was behind him, noticed this change and immediately moved his eyes, carefully observing the circular energy that appeared. But when he looked at it with concentration, he felt that he had a splitting headache and his whole body was in a trance. He quickly looked away, feeling shocked in his heart. What kind of method is this? Why have I never heard Master talk about it before? He believed that the Master was destined not to hold anything back. After all, the many secrets in the Yin-Yang sect were by no means ordinary methods. Even the core secrets were willing to be disclosed to the disciples. The Master would not hide other methods too much. At least it's not like they've never even heard of it. I'm afraid it's a technique that Master has recently researched in recent years, but I don't know how effective it will be in actual combat. Lan Kuo is a star in any way, and he has many thoughts in an instant. But these complicated thoughts didn't have time to circulate too much, and I saw the circle of energy that turned into a circle of blue brilliance suddenly spread out. It can range from a few meters in size to hundreds of kilometers in size, but only in the blink of an eye. Buzz. This circle instantly swallowed up many of the first-level strongmen from the galaxy who were rushing towards them. After a moment, several of the most powerful outside forces who were trapped in the circle let out shrill howls. The strongmen in the formation were actually attacked one by the various forces ejected from the formation circle. What seemed like a random attack actually produced such a jaw-dropping attack method. What kind of attack method is this? This seems to be another technique of Yin-Yang Dao, but the circle seems to contain a great truth. Not only the first-level powerhouses of the galaxy were shocked, but many disciples of the Yin-Yang sect, including Lan Kuo, were also frightened, feeling that they had seen something unbelievable. The fighting power used by the Yin-Yang sect master is exactly the same as the great path passed down by the Yin-Yang sect. But the power of the formation contained in his methods was beyond their comprehension. Especially Lan Kuo, when he understood the power of the formation, he felt that his mind was struck by lightning, and he vaguely felt that this power was what he needed most. If he learns this master's method, his strength will skyrocket to 3,000 miles. Somehow he even felt that it was more than that. Perhaps this cultivation technique could also solve the talent problem that had been bothering him for a long time. In the entire Yin-Yang sect, except for Beast, who may not feel the shackles of cultivation talent, everyone else more or less feels the lagging behind of their own talent. If there is a way to solve this problem, it will open up a new world for the entire Yin-Yang sect. For a moment, his heart felt like countless ants were gnawing at him, and his heart was extremely itchy, but since the master was in the middle of a fierce battle, it was difficult to ask anything. The words are divided into two parts. Jia Yan, with a calm expression, used the power of the Yin-Yang Dao and the Array Dao to trap the powerful men at the beginning of several major galaxies in the formation. The first time it was used in actual combat, the power of this formation showed its ferocious appearance, which really gave Jia Yan a lot of surprises. With this current method, although the power of the clones is strong, it is not a big deal to kill this group of galaxy beginners, but one move per person is at least necessary. But after using the power of the formation, in addition to spending more mental power, the main body it didn't consume too much energy, and besides, there are many wonderful things about the power of the formation that I haven't developed yet. Jia Yan was very satisfied. Initially, the power of the Array and the Yin and Yang Dao are brought together in one place, and the effect is full of surprises. Puff! I saw a metal monster spitting out from the shuttle-like creation. The monster appeared, waving its claws. Between the lightning and flint, Jia Yan's trapped formation was cut through in a very free and unrestrained way. The artistic conception of the positive and negative forces lost the balance. The entire Nyoda formation seemed to be overwhelmed, directly like a billion thousands of broken glass turned into fragments and dissipated into the starry sky. Sure enough, it is not an ordinary domain lord level. Jia Yan looked at the metal monster that broke through his formation, and saw that the opponent was a technological creation of some kind, and it had many unique small combat changes, making it very advanced. However, this also shows that the way to combine my yin and yang dao with the power of the formation is long and arduous. It was just attacked in a certain direction and it was directly broken. If it was a stronger attack, this formation would be broken with so much strength, I can't even hold it up. Jia Yan nodded, not discouraged. It is normal to use a silver-like pewter spearhead when trying it for the first time. Otherwise, if you just create a skill casually and it will immediately become the most powerful skill in the world, you would be underestimating the way of cultivation, and it would be underestimating the heroes of the world. However, he will have no mercy on the metal creations that defeat his formation. I saw the incarnation of yin and yang controlled by Jia Yan, the turtle's claws gently paddling, and the power of the array one after another turned into positive and negative forces, flying out from the claws, and then corresponding to the galaxy that had regained its mobility one by one. Beginner strong men. The other one took care of the metal creature that ruined his good deeds. The opponent took half a step back, and under the control of a strong man, he raised his claws and struck out with a shocking blow. As expected, the formation circle that was about to control this metal creation was once again beaten to pieces by the opponent. Sir, help. However, the wastes at the elementary level of the galaxy around me were not so lucky. They scored twice, but were once again controlled by the one-to-one corresponding circle formation, and the power in the formation circle bombarded their bodies indiscriminately. Some of them were scarred and bleeding profusely in just the blink of an eye. Sir, what are you doing? But within the shuttle-like creation, there was the unique sound and chatter of toad creatures. Jia Yan looked at the inside of the shuttle creation and said pleasantly, "This method is called Array Dao. It was created by a friend in the black hole area. What do you think? Have you ever been to a black hole area?" The toad's voice seemed a little shocked. Then he became uncertain. "I'm sorry, I seem to be a little abrupt in coming here. If I had known that you had been to the black hole area and had such methods, I would not have come in this way this time." Several Xing novices looked desperate. In this situation where they were almost dead, Master Utensil was still chatting with the other party. I'm afraid he really didn't take these verbal allies into consideration. A strong man couldn't hold on any longer, his eyes flashed with despair, and the next moment, his body swelled and almost exploded. This is the act of self-destruction in order to perish together with Jia Yan. Oh, in this backward starry sky, there is still such courage. I underestimate the heroes in the world. Jia Yan's eyes fell on this swollen strong man. The power of the formation suddenly shrank, and almost as soon as he finished speaking, it strangled the strong man's body. His self-destruct figure actually disappeared completely due to his despair. Can you even control self-destruction? The strong toad was inside the shuttle instrument, his eyes even more startled and uncertain. You know, even he would have a hard time controlling the self-destruction of a junior powerhouse in the galaxy. After all, it was an explosion created by the opponent within himself, and it was difficult to intervene. But the person who used the weird technique must also be opportunistic. Humph, this technique is no good. Seeing that the waste from the starry sky brought by the colony was no longer able to bear the heavy burden, the strong toad's expression changed and he appeared in person. Your Excellency is finally willing to show up. Jia Yan was neither shocked nor solemn. He just glanced at the toad that flew out of the shuttle vessel as if he was looking at an ordinary existence. The strong toad's eyes flickered. You know, as a Lord Vessel, most of his fame is not his hobby of vessel, but the fact that he has traveled around the entire galaxy for many years, and then turned disaster into good fortune, and reincarnated into death several times. The legendary experience of making a living. A being like him is extremely sensitive to danger. Intuitively speaking, he sensed that the turtle creature in front of him was not stronger than the elementary level of galaxy. But the other party gave me a strong urge to escape from this place, even stronger than the previous Jedi. What kind of existence is this? Master Uzi's expression was indifferent on the surface, but deep down he was turbulent, and his vigilance was raised to the highest level. Your Excellency, I still ask the same question. I wonder how many of you come to our yin-yang sect to ask for a fight, or are they here to pay a friendly visit? The toad creature's face was uncertain for a few times, and then he forced a smile. Actually, I came to your territory to see the yin and yang dao created by you. It's just these bastards who fail to succeed and fail. Taking the offensive on your own initiative has nothing to do with me, so please don't misunderstand me, yin-yang. The few elementary beings of the galaxy who were still trapped in the formation and were trapped and died were all rolling their eyes. On the one hand, it feels uncomfortable to be trapped, and on the other hand, it makes people complain. You're the bastard, aren't you, the one who told Shiyuan that you came to the yin-yang sect to take the yin-yang way? He actually tried to burn bridges, but when he saw that the other party was stronger, he chose to say nice things. Master Gui, please, please, save, save. A local strong man at the beginning of the galaxy was about to speak with difficulty, but he saw a small metal man flying in front of him, taking advantage of the fact that he was trapped in the formation, and struck his head into pieces with one blow. These people have done their own evil and will not survive. I will help your Excellency Yin-Yang to kill them. The strong man toad suddenly changed his expression and turned against him, aiming at the trapped strong men. Jia Yan was speechless for a moment. You bastard! This, Master Vessel, this is not what we agreed. Wow! Puff. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3058. Puff. The few remaining primary level warriors of the galaxy present felt like their eyes were about to burst with anger. Some were yelling, some were begging for mercy, and some were interceding. However, without exception, they were all trapped under the shackles of the trapped formation. Kill the villains released by the vessel one by one. During the whole process, Jia Yan did not stop him and just watched. It wasn't until the other party killed all the other galaxy-level experts present that he looked at Master Gui Shiren, whose face was a little cautious and even a little flattering. How can you kill me? The giant toad laughed twice, nodded and said, I've had a lot of fun, I don't know what I'm waiting for next. He hasn't said yet what arrangements will be made next, whether it will be a friendly meeting, whether he will just go home, or whether he will pay some benefits and run away. I saw Jia Yan's yin and yang, but said as cold as ice. Since you've had so much fun killing, now it's my turn. The strong toad's face shook violently. This enemy. What are you doing? Isn't my attitude clear enough? I don't want to fight with you, but I'm willing to kill so many powerful leaders for this reason, but you don't appreciate it? Wait, friend, you and I are friends, not enemies. This time is just a misunderstanding. Before he finished speaking, he noticed with an ugly expression that a large number of circle-shaped formation powers appeared all around the turtle creature in front of him. The positive and negative power aura surges from time to time inside these circles. At this moment, all his words were blocked in his throat, and nothing could be said. He knew that this matter could not be reduced to a trivial matter. If the other party wants to attack him, he may or may not fight to the death. Since your Excellency is stubborn, let me feel it. How is your method? The strong toad gradually showed murderous intent. As a serious territory lord level powerhouse, although he has always been trapped in the elementary level of territory lord, over the years, he has already mastered the skills of using his own power to maximize his combat effectiveness. Especially those vessels, as long as they are used, his combat power will definitely reach a higher level. He even suspected that if he really wanted to fight, using the villain, he would be able to fight the senior domain lord. But it hasn't been verified yet. Certainly. The following facts will teach him a lesson about recognizing reality. It's just that if you take this course, you may not have the chance to take it again next time. The opponent's face was extremely gloomy, and he took action directly. A group of metal puppet-like creatures flew out from his shuttle vessel. Some of them were big and some were small. The big ones were several kilometers in size, and the small ones were hundreds of meters in size. Compared to Jia Yan's yin and yang clone, which is only 1 or 2 meters in size, it is a world of difference. A doomsday-like scene shrouded the entire Earth, giving people a sense of constant panic. That's right. Jia Yan snorted coldly. He was really worried that the other party wouldn't take action. It's a bit unethical to not take action and take the initiative to attack and kill him as a stronger person. But since the other party took the initiative, it was natural for Jia Yan to fight back with his clone. Otherwise, where would he find a place to try the power of the formation? I saw the turtle claws under Jia Yan's hand. With a flick of his finger, formations emerged and appeared in the vacuum. Lan Kuo and the others behind him were already watching mesmerized. The power of this array made them feel itchy. If it were just ordinary combat skills, or the combat skills of other strong men, they would not be like this. However, the techniques used by the Onmyoji master vaguely gave them a feeling that they were extremely consistent with the Onmyodo, which was very desirable. In addition to these disciples, a huge figure far away from the edge of the battlefield also had a similar feeling. Leda is a domain lord, and the power of the formation he masters is second only to the formation Dr. Master and Jia Yan, and probably second only to Edisha. Anyway, he was extremely excited to watch and learned a lot. That trick again. The vessel master who used a large number of puppets had a solemn expression. The yin-yang in front of him seemed to be below his own level in strength, but he used the fighting skills to perfectly restrain himself. He has always used a large number of metal puppets in battles and used the human sea tactic to attack and kill enemies as his main means. This method was infinitely reduced in the face of yin and yang's formations. I saw the formation circles turning into streaks of blue light, facing the large number of puppets flying towards them. Spread out. It happens that the strong toad also has strong mental talent, otherwise he would not be able to control so many puppets. Under the operation of his mental power, the puppets quickly dispersed. The formation circles followed him like a shadow, chasing him one after another. You can actually have such amazing mental control. The strong toad looked solemn and spared no effort to control the puppets. And on the surface of his shuttle-shaped flying creation, a large number of gun barrels suddenly appeared. After all, it is the vehicle of a domain lord-level powerhouse. In addition to the ability to fly, extremely powerful firepower is the basic configuration. Jia Yan perked up. Now it seems that this strong toad is the best person to use as his alchemy stone. After all, Jia Yan is strong in mental power, and his formation training skills also require a lot of mental power. Moreover, he has already calculated that if he initially sets up the formation and yin-yang directions, he will not find anyone who is enough to threaten his mental power. If the object is to practice and combine the formation and yin and yang in the future, I am afraid that there will be a greater disadvantage in actual combat. If you feel sleepy, someone will give you a pillow. The path taken by this instrument master is consistent with your spiritual power. It's just right for fighting against clones. Phew, phew. In the vacuum, a large number of puppets and array circles crisscrossed. Both sides wanted to get close to the other party's controller and destroy it, but the other party sent a considerable amount of blocking force to intercept, and the situation quickly became tense. You come and I go, how wonderful it is. It's too strong. Master deserves to be a master. Lan Kuo saw his master Yin Yang fighting fiercely with the invading domain lord, with no distinction between superior and inferior, and felt his blood boiling. Now I know that my master is actually a domain lord level combat expert. It may be a little worse in terms of energy performance, but when it comes to fighting, it is completely equal to the real domain master. What does this mean? It shows that Yin Yang Dao combined with the power of Formation Dao can kill enemies even at the galaxy level. His eyes gradually brightened. Even if there is no greater breakthrough in his lifetime strength, with the power of the formation, he might be able to fight between stars and galaxies. No matter where he goes, he will definitely be at the top level. Several other Yin-Yang sect disciples also had serious expressions. After making eye contact, they made plans to work hard to learn the power of Yin-Yang Dao. No one is a fool. Master alone asked them to come to learn Yin-Yang Dao and add the power of Formation Dao, probably because they have talents in this area. Since there is such an opportunity, if you don't take advantage of it, it will be a waste of money. Then to the rear. Leda is far more eye-catching than Lan Kuo and others. His expression gradually became serious. Except for Leda, no one else, not even the strong toads in the battle, noticed that Jia Yan had been repeatedly trying to optimize the power of the formation in this battle. After playing hundreds of moves, Leda discovered that you are worthy of being a master. Even if the person present is just a clone, the clone has a strong ability to adjust. He has already found optimization techniques in the duel, combining a large number of formations with Yin and Yang Dao. The method was explored from actual combat. This is the birth of a fighting technique. In just one battle, a lot can be optimized and summarized. Boom! The top of the sky. An overwhelming explosion broke out. A puppet and the formation circle were both destroyed. Your Excellency, our cultivation paths are incompatible with each other, and our overall mental strength is similar. There is no need to continue the fight. How about we just let it go? The master of the vessel had a sinister expression on his face. Although he said these words, he felt that his face was dull. After all, he was begging a junior and middle level being in the galaxy to make peace. It was as if he had lost. But judging from the scene, the battle between the two sides really came to a dead end. The mental power of the two is similar, and the opponent's puppet consumption is roughly the same as Jia Yan's mental power consumption. However, Jia Yan only consumes mental power, while the other party consumes puppets that are rarely collected. Even if he wins a small victory, it will still be a loss. The damage was severe. So he came up with the draw argument first. Jia Yan looked at the strong toad and continued to use the formation with a calm expression. If you don't drink a toast, I'll be fined with wine. I'm not begging you for a truce. The vessel master looked sinister again. He knew that if he didn't give the so-called yin and yang in front of him a hard time, he would probably be reluctant to let him go. He simply ordered the firepower of the shuttle-like creation to be turned on at the same time. Boom! In the sky, a large amount of firepower and bombardment were concentrated and launched. This firepower covers a wide area, including Jia Yan and a large number of puppets. Don't worry, my puppets have been specially optimized. Their ability to withstand their own artillery far exceeds that of ordinary substances, so this saturation attack will only cause you to bear damage unilaterally. The strong toad said calmly and calmly. He knew that such an offensive alone would not be able to directly kill the yin-yang, and it might even be impossible to even injure the opponent. But his purpose is just to make the opponent throw a rat weapon, and defense also requires energy. Under the circumstances, if he brings up the idea of a truce again, yin-yang must be asking for it, and he may be able to blackmail him. As the firepower poured out, the expressions of everyone watching from a distance changed wildly. Except for Leda. Lan Kuo and other disciples were filled with indignation. The so-called territory lord level powerhouse who borrows foreign objects in a fight is not worthy of respect at all. It's just that the yin-yang sect master is obviously one level behind the opponent's momentum. It's just that he can't defeat an existence weaker than himself. Now he still wants to cheat. I'm so angry. If I have the strength in the future, I will definitely make this person pay with blood. But, what should we do now? Master Yin Yang will not be injured. Lan Kuo frowned. But he did not take a stand or express his concerns. Because he remembered that his master told him at that time that he didn't need to worry, he was just a domain master. Although the combat effectiveness displayed at this time, the two sides were evenly matched. But he always felt that his master was not giving his all. As for why, he couldn't explain. Maybe the master was too mysterious in the past and never gave Lan Kuo the feeling of exhaustion. In short, he just trusted him. Puff. As expected. Just when Lan Kuo was worried and looking forward to it, a ray of light came from the area shrouded in artillery fire. A giant circle that was far larger than before, broke through numerous obstacles, and could not be damaged by artillery fire, appeared in this universe. The toad creature's expression changed wildly, and it involuntarily operated the shuttle backwards. He has experienced similar battles several times, and those times were often times of great disaster for him. So now, past experience is telling him that if he doesn't leave at this time, it may be difficult. That's all. I'll just give up on the so-called yin-yang sex magic weapon. Life is more important than material things. The man made up his mind and ordered the shuttle to fly backwards. At the same time, the scene behind the area covered by artillery fire was also revealed. I saw a circle of blue rings surrounding Jia Yan's body. There were also a large number of artillery fragments and shells surrounding the blue ring of light, but none of them broke into the blue circle. Let's name this Yin-Yang Dao Defense Formation. Jia Yan's voice came out calmly. Cheers came from the disciples behind him. Lan Kuo stopped breathing, or in other words, he couldn't breathe in the universe, but his perception was as if his life had stopped for a moment. The power of this formation actually has such terrifying defensive power. Behind him, Leda showed a slight smile. In fact, the power of the Yin-Yang Dao formation that was first developed was a defensive formation. After all, the power of the formation they learned was learned from the master of the formation doctor, and the formation that the master of the formation doctor was best at was the defensive formation. There are complete array essentials and experiences to learn, so the two of them, Jia Yan, initially researched the defensive formation by nation of Yin and Yang Dao. It's just that I have never tried such a large-scale defensive formation. I didn't expect that Jia Yan found out how to expand the formation by adding Yin and Yang during the fight, and ended up with such an amazing defensive formation. Okay, this is great. Maybe this is the first Onmyoji formation that can improve my combat effectiveness. Leda thought with joy. You must know that the previous Yin-Yang Dao and Formation Dao are said to have great prospects, but there have never been any techniques worthy of being used by the middle-level players of the galaxy. They can only comfort themselves, draw cakes, and study hard. From time to time, I would have self-doubt, thinking that combining the power of the Formation Dao with the Yin and Yang Dao would not work. But now, Jia Yan has developed the defensive technique of Array Path plus Yin and Yang Path, which can't even hit the Domain Lord level attack, which shows that this technique has reached a level that Leda can use without holding back. Even though this has not yet been developed to its ultimate state, there is still a slight possibility that if it continues to be developed, it will become as powerful a defense as a tortoise. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3059. Leda is naturally happy. There are ready-made arrays available. Looking at the strong toad who flew away upside down, his eyes showed a little kindness. After all, this is the person who created the new world of Yin-Yang Dao and Formation Dao. Not only him, but also Jia Yan. Yes, your attack gave me inspiration. As a reward, I can give you the freedom to choose a way to die. You choose. Jia Yan's ice-cold voice seemed to be smiling, but it was extremely cold and terrifying. Shameless talk. The strong toad's face turned ugly for a while, and his eyes became even more stern. He was indignant because he was clearly the stronger one in the face, yet the other party looked down on him so much. Does this mean you think you can control him? You can't understand the power of a domain lord level. Boom. The master of vessels simply released all his puppets, feeling extremely uncomfortable as if his heart was bleeding. He knew that the yin and yang in front of him was not so easy to deal with, but the other party refused to let him escape, so he had no choice but to use his trump card. The art of puppet utensils is such a waste of money. As long as his puppets encounter a powerful enemy once, they will have to be consumed countless times. This is why the utensil master is always kind to others. Even if you beat me, it will take a lot of money. If it were you, you would be kind to others. This time he had chosen the best target to bully. This target was in lagging starry sky. If it were any domain lord level, he would not think that he would miss. The vessel master is a more cautious type. This time he deliberately brought out all his combat accessories. Unexpectedly, he still hit the iron plate. You, a being whose combat power has reached the domain lord level, are you really doing a sect in the backward starry sky? It's simply the ultimate level of old age. Boom boom boom. A terrifying shockwave burst out among the stars. The puppets rushed forward one after another, completely fearless of death. However, what can deal with them is the power of formations from the hands of yin and yang. These formations flow with azure light, which is dazzling and confusing. What kind of combat technique is this? The vessel master looked ugly. Because his puppets were destroyed one by one under the interference and obstruction of the power of the formation. The power of the formation consumes the opponent's body strength. According to his estimation, the opponent is not as strong as a domain lord, and his mental strength is long gone. It should have been an overdraft, but now. He is still full of energy, but there is no sense of exhaustion at all. Finally, the master of vessels looked at the empty starry sky with a gloomy expression, without any of his own puppets. The artillery fire was still rumbling, but these artillery fires were blocked by the power of Jia Yan's defensive formation. This defensive power is enough for my body to be used for training. It is definitely a kind of killing weapon. Yin Yang felt the current defensive force, and his eyes lit up. With the help of a master of utensils, the first mature plan for combining yin and yang formations was released. It is the defensive formation method derived from the formation doctor master. The power of this formation, combined with the yin and yang dao, has defensive power, which may make the originator, the formation doctor master, also feel that it is heaven-defying. But this is only for the ordinary domain master level. Jia Yan is just ready to let the main body use it. Because the post-territorial lord level is much higher than the ordinary domain lord level, including the yin and yang dao currently used by Jia Yan, it is not the most outstanding level among the post-territorial lord levels. Of course, the more reason is that the time for Jia Yan's promotion is too short. As long as he is given another 100 or hundreds of years, yin and yang dao can definitely grow into a top cultivation skill like Optimus Pillar. After all, the starting point of yin and yang dao is high. And it is very different from orthodox cultivation techniques. It is a new approach and has great potential for future growth. But it's obvious that Jia Yan is not prepared to wait for the yin and yang dao to be perfected. He planned to copy it by force and integrate the power of the array into the yin and yang dao. In this way, the two immature new skills may collide with a more blazing brilliance, and it will also allow these two paths to reach the level that it took him hundreds of years to reach even though they are immature. This is probably Jia Yan's ambition. Master of Vessels, right? Can you make a decision now? Jia Yanyun's light breeze spread the mature power of the formation, and the sky was instantly filled with circle-shaped blue formation power. The Master of Vessels is completely wrapped in it, and it feels like he is surrounded on all sides. The strong toad was as cold as ice, his eyes focused on all the power of the formations around him. You are very strong. You have pushed me to this extent with your own strength that is not at the domain lord level. It seems that the other party has not been pushed to the limit yet, and he still has full confidence in speaking. But, your strength is only superficial. Moreover, this world is definitely not something that we and other domain lords can be the masters of at the first level. Do you want to kill me? I tell you, this starry sky, what you say doesn't count, but what a senior domain master says. Do you dare to touch me? The other party took out a token-like object. This token is engraved with the word promoting evil. Master Shensi is the strong man standing behind the master of this instrument. The goal I have studied for many years is also to work for Master Shensi. If you know this, please immediately hand over the training method of the magic weapon in your yin and yang dao. The Master of Vessels was unable to defeat anyone, so he began to use the power behind him to threaten him. Jia Yan nodded slightly. This is like a strong man in a prosperous area. If he doesn't stick together, he will suspect that he has come to a fake prosperous place. Generally speaking, it is difficult for strong people to stay together, but this is definitely not the case in the central star field of the Milky Way. Because the territory lords here are far from top-notch powerhouses, and there are no senior territory lords or even junior territory lords behind them as shields, it is absolutely impossible to run rampant in the central star field of the galaxy with great fanfare. This vessel master dared to break into the backward starry sky alone and take the initiative of the yin-yang sect, presumably because there was someone behind him. But Senior Domain Lord. Joke. Jia Yan was not threatened by the other party's words of Senior Domain Master, and just snorted coldly. Behind the starry sky, Leda was also speechless and choked. He believed in his heart that the strong man behind the Master of Vessels could not be said to be less powerful. If the original Queen's power had a senior domain lord level being as support behind it, it would not be in a difficult situation. But in front of Master Jia Yan, the senior domain master, that's really nothing. The distance between the combat power of the lower level territory lords and that of the senior territory lords is huge. It seems that there is only one level difference, but if placed among the four giants, the senior territory lord is just an ordinary strong man, while the lower level territory lord is an absolutely powerful being like a god. It can be seen how big the gap between the two sides is. Sheng Xie. A slight smile bloomed on Jia Yan's frosty face. Yes, this lord is the one who secretly supports me. You must have grown up nearby and heard the legend of this lord. How about it? Yin Yang, if you are willing to hand over the yin and yang dao magic refining skills, I will by introducing this gentleman to you, maybe the yin yang sect will be able to get out of the so-called backward starry sky and set foot on the more prosperous and vast territory of the true strongest. The master of utensils is like a sincere teacher, comforting Jia Yan. But the meaning of everything he said was just to survive. By the way, get some benefits, such as the yin and yang Tao magic weapon. He had gotten a copy of this thing from the outside world, and it was something from the hands of a new yin yang dao magic weapon forger, but it had already shocked him. He had spent his whole life on magic weapons and technological creations. Knowing very well that yin yang dao may be on a grand road that has never been followed before or after, so he wanted to take this opportunity to learn about the weapon refining skills of yin yang dao, and then make some insinuations, maybe he could be able to help the person behind him. Position, get the authentic yin and yang Tao training techniques. Of course, he also knew that the yin-yang sect recruited a wide range of disciples. But it is impossible for any sect to hand over the core skills to ordinary disciples. Even some cutting-edge cultivation techniques will only be in the mind of yin-yang himself. That's why he made the strip. Even if yin-yang Dao is not well known, the unique weapon refining method is definitely worth the price. Needless to say, you can't take away the yin-yang sect's weapon refining method. Yin and Yang's words made the master of vessels, who had thought that the other party would obediently hand over the things, turn into a ferocious expression. Before he could say anything vicious, Jia Yan said, "Not only can you not take away the yin-yang Dao weapon refining method, but today, even you yourself cannot leave the territory of our yin-yang section. Go ahead and tell me, which way of death did you choose?" The strong toad simply couldn't believe it. He felt that he was facing a stubborn and rigid existence. It was said so clearly. Is it difficult for him not to understand? Behind him, there is a senior domain lord level powerhouse. Master Toad, who is strong on the outside but capable on the inside, has raised his own strength. And Jia Yan no longer wanted to talk to him. If the person here was not a clone but the real body, he would have killed the opponent with one blow instead of talking to the opponent. But the clone's strength is still a little bit behind after all, so he talks more to the other party. Nowadays, there are too many words to say without speculation. Jia Yan spread out his hands, flexed his fingertips, and a large amount of blue formation power spread in a circle in the universe. The endless power is dazzling and dizzy. The yin-yang sect disciples around him looked shocked. Leda, on the other hand, didn't feel anything at all. He has long known that the source of energy for his master's avatar comes from the real body. Through some kind of magical channel, the two parties can continuously transmit power. He believed that as long as there was no power to kill Jia Yan's clone with one blow, this yin and yang could drag a senior domain lord to death. Of course, with the strength of the senior domain lord, it is hard to imagine that yin-yang would still be killed with a single blow. Anyway, the scene was extremely grand for a moment. How can you still have some energy left? The energy you just consumed hasn't exhausted your mental strength yet? This is impossible. As a being who is also good at mental power, the strong toad was suddenly shrouded in colorful blue, and his scalp felt numb and he felt dizzy. What made him even more unbelievable was that he had just controlled so many puppets to fight against Jia Yan's clones, and his mental energy had been exhausted, but this being who did not seem to be at the level of a domain lord actually still had some energy left. It doesn't make sense. If you can't figure it out, go to another world and think about it. Jia Yan opened his claws, and Turtle's face was full of viciousness. Hundreds of formation circles suddenly gathered around and swallowed up the master vessel in front of him, as well as the shuttle-shaped aircraft he was sitting on. The extremely astonishing sound of the explosion may not be comparable to the power of yin-yang Dao explosives when taken out individually. However, in terms of the degree of fine operation and the subtle operation of the direction of the explosion, the power of this explosion is definitely far greater than that of positive and negative explosives. Moreover, the yin-yang Dao plus the power of the formation Dao has other advantages, such as the consumption of mental power and body power is not very large. Even if Jia Yan consumes it in this way, it is not more consumed than when a large number of positive and negative explosives explode. Positive and negative explosives require preparation in advance and waste a lot of energy. Not to mention, this array combat technique is just a preliminary study. There are many ways to develop and improve it in the future. Comparing the two, Jia Yan believes that his positive and negative explosives can almost officially declare their withdrawal from the stage of history. In the sky, the surrounded and annihilated vessel master, together with the shuttle-shaped aircraft under him, were torn apart under an extremely magnificent brilliance. The mighty shock wave swept along the starry sky in all directions, destroying the people on both sides of the border. The market was swept away for an unknown distance. However, no one dared to complain. No one even dared to express their displeasure. In the decisive battle between the two of them just now, the creatures in the starry sky fell behind and felt cold all over. The battle between domain lords is beyond the imagination of the backward starry sky, or for them, this is the supreme god. The scattered fragments were scattered in the wind, and a large number of good materials that were rare for the backward starry sky were blown into all directions of the backward starry sky on the body of the strong toad. In this case, even if some disciples of the yin-yang sect are extremely jealous, it is impossible to retrieve them all. This beast has been eliminated. Then there is no need to hide the news about our return. Let's return to our section. Jia Yan suddenly looked back and looked at the few disciples who had been singled out. Yes, Master. The border disciples led by Lan Kuo quickly accepted their orders. Behind them, Leda, who had not noticed the whole process, also nodded. Jia Yan deliberately did not let his disciples publicize it, just to avoid alerting others. Now he has dealt with the invading master vessel in one go, and also led the master vessel to kill several local galaxies at the initial level, which can be regarded as laying the main tone for the yin-yang sect to dominate the backward starry sky in the future. Jia Yan's worries about the yin-yang sect were basically relieved. By the way, there is also Master Shensi, do you want to go and solve it together? This suddenly occurred to him. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3060. Forget it, they didn't take the initiative to provoke me. At worst, after I went out, I could communicate with the other person and beat him, and he would probably not dare to do anything. Jia Yan believes that he is still kind-hearted. He didn't bother to bully the weak. Leda, let's do this, lest that Shensi, after hearing about the fighting situation here, misjudge the situation, launch an attack, and waste his life for no reason. You go and go for me, beat the opponent, and I will give you magic weapon. Yin Yang said to the starry sky. Yes. After a moment, Leda took the order and entered the subspace. When he walked out of the palace, he had an extra magic weapon of yin and yang in his hand. Originally, Leda had the magic weapon given by Jia Yan, which was a huge hammer-like creation. Later, after the creation was modified and maintained, it was passed to Edish's hands. Now Jia Yan has taken out the artifacts he has studied over the years. After a long time, a large number of magical artifacts were created that were very suitable for the power of the formation, and there were two current circle powers of the formation embedded in them, one for attack and one for defense. You know, this is something made by the real person. With this treasure, Leda, who is already at the middle level of the galaxy, can assist Zozo. It is not a problem for him to support a few moves in the hands of senior domain masters. If he is lucky, he can still escape. Jia Yan also promised Leda that if he had to, he could self-destruct this magic weapon constructed by the power of positive and negative forces. I am afraid that the senior domain master was either killed or injured when the Onmyodo explosives from his hand exploded, which was enough to protect Leda's safety. If danger still occurs, then Leda's ability is too weak and he deserves to die. What Jia Yan wants is his subordinates, not his ancestors who need his protection at all times. Master, what I just said is right. Here, Yin Yang, who was watching Leda disappear from the sky, was awakened by Lan Kuo's voice. He nodded calmly, yes, the point you pointed out is the basis of the power of the formation. However, in fact, this path is much more complicated than you think, and it is a great path that can be compared with the yin and yang dao. Lan Kuo and others' expressions became solemn. Master, please teach us. Lan Kuo saluted respectfully, and the other disciples followed suit. Jia Yan nodded with satisfaction. Although he came here with this intention in mind, If the disciples think that teaching them is a matter of course, he will naturally not lick his face and stick to his cold butt in this matter. Fortunately, the atmosphere of the yin-yang sect is pretty good, at least there are no ungrateful people. Let's not talk about the teachings for now. We will talk about it after we return to the sect and see your other disciples. Please tell me about the recent disobedient forces within the yin-yang section. Lan Kuo perked up. I know that Master is planning to put aside the issue of cultivation and resolve the internal conflicts within the yin-yang sect first. Following his eloquent talk, Jia Yan nodded. The situation within the yin-yang sect was much better than he imagined. In a situation where we are surrounded on all sides, even if there are any internal conflicts, they will never rise to the level of division. Most of those forces cannot be said to be good or evil. Most of them just want to fight for power and profit from their direct disciples. Some of them can be said to have done more merit than fault, and there are very few who are really just doing evil. Oh, according to you, this so-called Bai family is the only one in the yin-yang sect who only wants to fight for power and profit. That's right. If I were to ask my disciples to make a ranking list of those who deserve to be killed, this Bai family would be at the top of all the forces. Well, I will eradicate the Bai family as a teacher. Yes. Lan Kuo didn't know what he was feeling. All in all, a mixed bag of flavors. The so-called big family is a very powerful force within the yin-yang section. The other party joined the yin-yang sect in the name of their family. From the first day they joined the sect, they made no secret of their purpose, which was to sideline the 6 major disciples. Then he took everything in the yin-yang sect into his pocket. Some people in their Bai family even spread rumors that Jia Yan, the sect leader, had already died outside. After joining the sect, we have been fighting for power. Because in our clan, there is a lower level star who is close to entering the galaxy level. Jia Yan snorted coldly. When could a star at the top of his class be so arrogant in front of him? Not to mention in the backward starry sky, even among the superstars, no territory lord level person would immediately roll to the ground and shout senior when seeing him. Master, are you planning to knock the mountain to shake the tiger this time, or are you planning to? Jia Yan looked at Lan Kuo, a disciple with a half-smile, and asked in a meaningful way, Lan Kuo, you should have made many suggestions for the sect in the past few decades. I guess this kind of thing will not be difficult for you. Just think about it for my master. How should I deal with this so-called Bai family? Lan Kuo frowned. He knew that his master was posing a question for him. It's okay if you answer well. If you answer wrong, it will definitely affect your status in master's heart. After thinking for a moment, he answered cautiously, replying to master, in the sect treaty you drafted, there was a clear rule that fellow sects were not allowed to use power for personal gain. Now this is as simple as not just breaking the rules. According to my disciple, it should be heavy penalties. What kind of heavy punishment? Lan Kuo was shaken, then gritted his teeth and gave up. Disciple makes a bold guess. Master should wipe out this clan. It is said to eradicate the grass and roots. If you don't do this, it will be difficult to achieve great results. Jia Yan smiled non-committally, nodded his head and stopped talking. This should be the correct answer, right? Lan Kuo let out a long breath. But he really didn't know how the master would deal with the Nabi family. As for the other powerful forces, I don't know how master will solve them. After all, these matters are too involved. If heavy punishments are used, the foundation of the yin-yang sect that has finally developed to what it is today may be shaken. Facts have proved that Lan Kuo's vision is a bit narrow due to his primary stellar strength. In other words, compared to Jia Yan, he was far behind in terms of talent in cultivation, control methods, and ruthlessness. Sect Master, I welcome you to my family. Puff. Lan Kuo really didn't expect that what Jia Yan said about dealing with the Bai family was really dealing with him. They didn't even conduct interrogations or various traces of evidence. After several days of interstellar navigation, when Jia Yan and others transferred to a large sect spaceship, they arrived outside the yin-yang star. A large number of strong men appeared in the vacuum of the universe to greet them, but Jia Yan did not even give him a chance to speak. When he came up, he flashed in front of the person who called himself Baijia, and struck him with a blow until his flesh and blood flew everywhere. Is this the star of the Bai family? Jia Yan looked at the broken limbs that had turned into powder, and looked blankly at Lan Kuo behind him, who was also stunned. Ah, yes, this person is the strongest person in the Bai family. As long as the killing is correct, now, Bet, who calls himself Bai Tian, Huishan, who is in charge of the herb business, and Tingshi, who guards the entrance to the Holy Star. Jia Yan recited the names one by one, and finally said softly to the powerful men who greeted him, "Stand forward for the sect leader." This. Most of the beings present have never seen the so-called yin-yang sect master. Recently I heard about this man's reputation. It was this man who actually killed a territory lord level outside the sect's border. He also killed half of the first-level galaxies behind him. It can be said that the battle between the yin-yang sect leader directly eliminated most of the high-end combat power of the backward starry sky. Not to mention the territory lord level, it is said that the strength is definitely not weak among the territory lords. He is a supreme existence that cannot be dealt with by the entire backward starry sky. And what a terrifying person the yin-yang sect master who can kill such beings must be. Therefore, with an uneasy mood, many strong men showed up to greet the sect leader they had never met before. They all made plans to give up the benefits of the yin-yang sect that they had devoured in recent years, and even paid a large amount of compensation for the hemorrhage. Self-preservation. Even if you lose a little at this time, it is definitely worth it. With such a sect leader and such a battle, who will be in charge of the backward starry sky in the future has already been written on paper. All we have to do is wait for the yin-yang sect to send people out to receive the surrender letters from various places one by one. What losses will not be recovered by then? So when they greeted him, they were still smiling. But these smiles quickly solidified on his face. No matter how they thought, they never imagined that the leader of the yin-yang sect, a person they only knew by name but had never met, would actually start killing Puyi when they met him. In the yin-yang sect, the strongest member of the Bai family, who can be said to be the most evil force, was killed without any reaction as soon as he came face to face with him, and his limbs and arms were turned into drifting objects in the universe. This. Everyone was horrified. If you still refuse to come out, do you want this sect leader to invite you out one by one? The yin and yang incarnated by Jia Yan, the head of the tortoise, looked indifferent, with his back facing many powerful men. Although he was only the size of a person, his momentum and magnanimity, coupled with the power of the lower-level star who had just been killed, immediately gave him a powerful impression. It gives people a feeling of being tall and strong. Sir, Bet is here. Although our clan has made mistakes, we have also made contributions to the clan. Puff. Another mid-level stellar being had just jumped out and wanted to beg for mercy, but his head exploded. The people next to him were so jealous that they were trembling with fear. Bet is the evil leader. Since his family has made several contributions against foreign enemies, this time we will only kill the evil leader Bet, while the rest of the clan will be exiled to work on the border star. Several creatures of the same race around Bet suddenly felt as if they had been granted amnesty, and they nodded respectfully, "Thank you, Lord, for your kindness." In another example, many other strong men looked at each other in shock, and some looked ashen. Others, "Why don't you take the initiative to step forward?" Yin Yang turned around, and Oogway glanced at the many people waiting in line. Well. Another person was anxious and sighed, and finally his tall body moved and walked out of the starry sky. Enough courage, but this sect master has never been in the temperament to forgive those who make mistakes. Puff. Another mid-level star, under the tortoise claws of yin and yang, there is not even the slightest resistance. Not long after, several more miserable-looking beings walked out of the queue with wry smiles. One of them was even more heroic. He asked Jia Yan to allow him to ask for advice on territory lord-level methods. Jia Yan agreed to him. The other party did understand territory lord-level methods, but he was no different from others. In one blow, then, it disappeared into ashes. Time passed slowly, and dozens of strong men, under Jia Yan's claws, turned into the nourishment of the starry sky in the universe. The starry sky beyond the yin and yang stars all turned blood red. Okay, everyone else in the sect generally understands that even those who are guilty will not be punished by death. When you figure out your guilt, you can go to the sect's meritorious service hall tomorrow to receive your guilt. Don't take chances and wait until the deadline is over. Jia Yan simply killed so many star-level beings without even blinking and returned to the spacecraft. After a while, the spacecraft started and landed towards the yin-yang star. Not long after, the scene that happened in the starry sky spread throughout the yin-yang sect. A large number of high-level powerful men were directly killed by the sect leader using various means. Most of the disciples exclaimed that the sect master's methods were so straightforward. At the same time, some people felt uncomfortable and thought that the sect leader's methods were too cruel. But they thought it was useless. In the yin-yang sect, even if Jia Yan wanted to kill everyone, no one would be able to resist. Strength is the greatest say in this universe. The Lord's actions are justified, not to mention the unrivaled strength of the Lord, which is also the endorsement guarantee for his own actions. In just a few days, the entire yin-yang sect's mountain tops were completely clear. Many departments and functional units, which were originally controlled by forces from various places, have almost become other forces within the sect, but now they are quickly replaced by capable people, and the efficiency is unbelievable. The entire yin-yang sect, which was originally on the verge of collapse, became full of vitality and vitality. Master's methods are indeed beyond our reach. On this day, Lan Kuo sat together with several fellow disciples and sisters who came out of the Holy Land and sighed deeply. As the main leaders who were forced to bring the yin-yang sect to its end, they knew best how serious the yin-yang sect's problems were. To say he was terminally ill would be an understatement. But they didn't expect that the problem that they thought was impossible to solve was solved directly by the master's method. Have to worship. In fact, this is not just Jia Yan's strength. Jia Yan, who has experienced a lot of things, is no longer the Wuxia Meng who only used force. The vast amount of familiar knowledge and experience allowed him to perfectly master the means to deal with the current situation. Otherwise, the yin-yang sect would suddenly lose a large number of strong men, and together with their affiliated families and forces, the whole tree would fall and scatter. Run for your life, plead guilty, plead guilty. A large number of functional departments have lost their workers, and if they are replaced by others, I am afraid that the yin-yang sect will be prosperous and will not turn into a chaotic world. But Jia Yan just used some tricks, using force points and experience, and quickly resolved all the problems one by one. Of course, what kind of person is Master? Billy's eyes were full of little stars, and she admired her very much. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3061. The cub-like white unicorn on the side is also very respectful. Master, he is still so majestic, and he will be killed as soon as the domain lord level tells him to. These two are still children, and most of their life experiences were in the yin-yang sect. So they didn't know how powerful Jia Yan was, thinking that he was not only powerful, but also capable of controlling people's hearts. Otherwise, how could he achieve this level of success? Biha, on the other hand, looked at Lan Kuo and asked, "Did Master say when he would meet us?" Lan Kuo straightened his face and said, "Although he didn't tell me in detail, his return this time is definitely not just to handle sect affairs. He is mainly here to teach me a new combat technique, so I will definitely meet him later. I wait. New fighting techniques. Beast's eyes lit up. Billy was also slightly interested. Lan Kuo saw that the two of them, as well as Biha, were a little surprised, but it was far from the surprise he imagined. He immediately realized that these brothers regarded what the master was going to teach as ordinary goods. He smiled mysteriously and said, "Don't underestimate this new cultivation technology. Master used this technology to kill the foreign domain lord and many juniors in this starry sky and river." According to reports, the old man said that this cultivation technique is no less than the supreme cultivation technique of Yin Yang Dao. What? No worse than Onmyado. How is this possible? Yin Yang Dao is so vast and obscure. Is there any new path that can be compared with Yin Yang Dao? I suddenly really want to see Master. The expressions of several people suddenly changed, and then they began to look forward to Jia Yan's so-called new skills. Seeing them scratching their heads, Lan Kuo was immediately satisfied. You can't just look forward to it all by yourself. Now that all the masters and brothers are scratching their heads and looking forward to it, they can finally have a balance in their hearts. Although he has graduated from the streets, he is still a bit sinister. After successfully dragging several fellow disciples into scratching their heads, Lan Kuo couldn't help but study the basics of the formation taught by his master. It is said to be a formation, but in fact it is still derived from spiritual power. In particular, the master once said that the power of this formation requires talent. Without the talent of the formation, even the most talented beast among the disciples would never have the opportunity to learn in depth. He learned the basics. Now I can't wait to carry out the testing method. Buzz. In the retreat, Lan Kuo's figure moved. An energy group formed by mental power condensed in the air, but unfortunately it disappeared completely before turning into blue. At least it can form a spiritual power group. Speaking of which, it should be a bit talented. Lan Kuo nodded proudly. He did not teach his fellow disciples what he had learned. It's not that I am too precious to myself. It's just that he didn't dare to mislead other people's disciples. He himself was ignorant in learning, and if he still taught others, he was basically harming them. Lan Kuo, come quickly. Just when he was about to continue to consolidate the foundation of the spiritual power group, he heard a spiritual power transmission in his ears. Lan Kuo's spirit perked up, and he quickly and respectfully said yes, then stood up and walked out of the retreat. Arriving at the largest building in Yin Yang Star, I saw all the disciples gathered here. I've met all of my fellow disciples. No need to be polite. The faces of the 6 true disciples were all red and excited, as if they were celebrating a festival. Compared with Lan Kuo, who met Jia Yan earlier than them, many of their disciples had just returned. Just because his disciples had gathered together, Jia Yan asked them all to show up and come to see him. Just as the disciples were gathering together, Ryan's eyes rolled around, and when he was about to ask Lan Kuo something, he was shocked to find a figure sitting on the Hyapon chair of the palace sect leader. Jia Yan transformed into yin and yang and came to the main hall at some point. I've met Master. I've met Master. All the disciples immediately became as silent as cicadas, stopped chatting, and bowed to Jia Yan, who was at the head. Although today's Jia Yan has returned after decades of separation, he has just returned and used thunderous means to kill a large number of cancers in the Yin-Yang section for the majority of Yin-Yang sect's disciples and the people under the rule of power. That is a thunderous and transcendent reputation. Even the disciples have added a lot of reverence to their master on the basis of their great respect. Very good. I am very satisfied with the progress of your cultivation these days. Jia Yan observed the disciples and nodded with satisfaction. The area where the Yin-Yang sect is located is really too backward. He didn't have high expectations, because he wouldn't be disappointed if he didn't have expectations. Jia Yan had just hoped that they would perform better than those on Earth. but the disciples proved to themselves with facts that no matter how backward the backward star field was, it was still comparable to the central star field of the Milky Way. Compared with the Orion arm, it was still a completely different world. All disciples have improved, and the weaker they are, the more they have improved. It was all taught by Master back then, otherwise we wouldn't be as strong as we are today. As the eldest disciple, although her strength is at the weakest level, Billy still stands out from the crowd in a generous manner. Jia Yan smiled with satisfaction. He was also observing whether the disciples would not place her in the position of the eldest disciple because of his low strength. Now it seems that they still complied with their request and respect Billy very much. Only in this way can we respect our teachers. Billy, you have grown up too. It's up to you to tell me how it goes. Billy took a deep breath. She knew that Jia Yan was testing himself. If she cannot tell Zaiwo Mao, her status as a disciple will not be deprived of her, but her status in the master's heart may be greatly reduced. A few decades ago, one could say she was young. Nowadays, she dare not claim to be young. Yes, the disciple has now reached the starry sky level. The path I'm good at is on yin-yang dao explosives, and I also have some knowledge of the research on magic weapons. Second junior brother Biha, he specializes in the research of magical weapons. Therefore, his cultivation has not improved rapidly recently and is still stuck at the venerable level. However, I believe that junior brother is only temporarily stagnant, and there will be a day when he will soar to the sky. Third junior brother Ryan. Billy was generous and spoke clearly. And she wasn't nervous either. From the looks of the other disciples, she was chatting and laughing with Jia Yan. They were inferior to her just for the way she treated her master. Jia Yan listened, the turtle's head came up, and he nodded silently. The disciples looked at this master, and for a moment, they were somewhat transported back to the time when they first became their master. The master at that time was in such a calm state. Many disciples were initially confused about master's identity and even doubted master's strength. The aloof temperament has also influenced today's yin-yang section. Not only the direct disciples, but also a large number of other ordinary disciples all have an unwavering demeanor. No sadness, no joy, calm demeanor. This is the impression that yin-yang sect as a whole gives to outsiders. It is precisely because of this that the yin-yang sect's already strong individual strength is further accentuated. There had been wars before, because other forces looked down on the mediocre yin-yang sect and thought they could destroy the yin-yang section. As a result, after they came to attack, the yin-yang sect was completely defeated by just one palace. So in the original war, did those so-called foreign forces still have some influence? Yes, but master's killing of them is naturally in line with the sect's laws. Otherwise, if they wait until they become big, they will be unable to get rid of them in the future, and they will definitely be a cancer of our yin-yang section. Talking about the past, the relationship between Jia Yan and his disciples became closer. Finally, the pleasantries are over. It's time for Jia Yan to come to yin-yang sect to get down to business. Of course, maybe for the disciples, the previous reports and so on are also very important events. Well, you should also know that my teacher has learned some skills in the outside world, and one of the skills is almost on par with yin-yang dao, and it is also a cultivation method that directly points to the dao. My master has painstakingly studied it, and after some research, I believe that this Tao and yin-yang Tao are complementary to each other. It may even activate the hidden talents of practitioners to a certain extent, that is, increase the talents of a certain group of people. Therefore, when we return from this trip, we need the help of the disciples in our sect to jointly study this new cultivation technique. However, it is definitely risky. When you mention this to me, please make it clear and do it voluntarily. Sign up in principle. Jia Yan finished the above remarks in a calm tone, but when he saw the disciples below, their eyes all turned green. Master, I wonder if my direct disciples can sign up. Junior brother Lankuo is said to have seen this new technique, and we also want to see it. If possible, I am willing to sign up, even if I face life and death, I will not regret it. Several disciples spoke enthusiastically. Although the others did not speak, their eyes betrayed them. Except for Beast, every one of the disciples present was amazed by the talent. Their talents are far from outstanding. And in fact, even beasts are just a dwarf in a backward starry sky. To compare, if Jia Yan brought out the little fish who was playing in the subspace Edisha star and could become stronger, Beast would be immediately hit and lose his confidence. Certainly. It can't be compared like this. Xiao Yuer is Jia Yan who has traveled thousands of miles and thousands of rivers, and finally met him by chance. He may be the rare disciple in the entire galaxy who matches his talent and inheritance. As for the group of disciples in front of them, they had no choice but to make a decision at that time. They were still born in a backward starry sky. Let alone comparing them to the little fish born in a giant star, it is not enough to describe the relationship between the two parties. Gap. You are all eager to learn, which is good. However, the talents required for this formation are rare. It is impossible for everyone like you to have the talent to learn, so it is urgent to test your talents. Jia Yan smiled. If you go to the superstars, more than half of the young people who meet the requirements for cultivating the power of the formation may be able to adapt, but when you come to the backward stars, there will be fewer people with that kind of talent. This is the difference. Jia Yan didn't really make them all agree. There is 1/10, or 1/20, which is an extremely large number. In addition, they have practiced yin and yang dao for decades, so it is extremely crucial to help his research. If we go back to the Orion arm to look for it, the person with this talent may be 1 in 100, or even 1 in a few hundred. Soon, the talent test like a C selection began. Knowing that this selection was made by the elusive yin-yang sect master, who was going to personally select talented people and teach them the latest fighting skills, the entire yin-yang sect was shocked. You know, the yin-yang sect master has just killed a foreign domain lord, as well as several local first-level galaxy powerhouses. Among those who were killed, which one didn't stomp their feet and make the backward starry sky shake? And the sect leader who killed them in this way was actually willing to select disciples from an audition and teach them personally. What an opportunity this was! Needless to say, the number of applicants was extremely enthusiastic. If Jia Yan was alone, dealing with these applicants would consume a lot of his time, but he was not stupid enough to do such a thing alone. In fact, he didn't even take action himself, but chose some stellar masters to handle these matters for him. Of course, before that, those star-level experts had also been personally tested by Jia Yan. Naturally, some people are happy and some are sad. As for the disciples, well, alas, alas. Senior brother, I'm tired of you sighing all day long. At a testing point, Biha and Xiao Xiao, the people in charge, were fighting each other. Biha glanced at the beast sideways. The unicorn looked optimistic and did not understand his pain at all. What do you know? You passed the test, but I didn't pass, senior brother. This is a path that can be compared with yin-yang dao. It doesn't matter that senior brother is not talented in yin-yang dao. I actually missed this opportunity. How can I be happy, senior brother? Get up. It turns out that Biha, as the least talented disciple, had already suffered a lot of cynicism. Yesterday, under Jia Yan's personal test, he unfortunately failed. It shows that he is not good at anything. He can even go out to perform tasks, and his strength is not good. In addition, he has no characteristics in dealing with people. Now he has the status of second disciple. Many people feel that he does not live up to his name. Beast smiled. The electric arc above his head flickered, and he didn't know if it was mocking him. Senior brother, don't say that. Aren't you the strongest among us in the ability of magic weapons? From now on, you will specialize in the study of magic weapons. Maybe, it will be your turn to be the master of magic weapons in the yin-yang sect in the future. On the head. But, it's not because you don't have time to study magic weapons. Speaking of which, Biha had nothing to do. Among the major disciples, he is the only one who studies more magical instruments. It's really because his cultivation speed is too slow. If he wants to achieve more results, he might as well study magical weapons that no one likes very much. As a result, he really researched a lot of magic weapons. Of course, these results were all based on the huge knowledge base of magic weapons left by Jia Yan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3062. Hey, this junior brother, your talent is good. Yeah, great. Beast happened to use the array spiritual power detection method left by Jia Yan and detected a venerable level existence with the talent of array power. The opponent immediately danced away in excitement. Biha was extremely envious. By the way, didn't you learn a lesson about the power of formation? How do you feel? Biha asked very curiously. Hearing this, Beast groaned. After a long while, he nodded solemnly and said, to be honest, I feel sorry for you, senior brother. The power of this formation. It's really as Master said, it's extremely scary. Even though I only took one class, from my senses, even if I practice it alone, this ability is probably no less than yin and yang dao. Of course, the formation now it seems that the power of Tao is some kind of auxiliary ability, not a complete cultivation path like yin and yang Tao, and there are still differences between the two. Sigh, the more you say that, the more uncomfortable I feel as a brother. Then what can I say? I can't lie to you. The power of this formation is not as powerful as the legend says. Not to mention the extremely depressed Biha, nor the number of yin-yang sect disciples who received the basic inheritance of the power of the formation as if they were a treasure. The clone yin-yang, who only said that he was waiting for the detection news, received the information from his real body. Edisha and Xiao Yu are coming. Yin-yang thought about it and nodded, that's right. There is no danger in the yin-yang sect now. It's time for the two of them to meet everyone in the yin-yang section. Maybe they will meet alone or cooperate in the future. Don't hit your own family when the flood floods the Dragon King Temple. Although the yin-yang sect is not a top sect, it is indeed a sect that Jia Yan spent his energy to create. Moreover, it stands proudly in the central star field of the Milky Way, and there is no telling whether there will be other developments in the future. It is also a must for its proud disciples to meet the yin-yang sect disciples in advance. After getting yin-yang's approval reply. Not long after, a gap opened in the subspace. Without anyone noticing, a wave of strength that far exceeded the domain lord level came to this place quietly and sent out two figures. Come out. He, come out, it's so bright outside. The two little ones have long been accustomed to moving in the subspace. As soon as Pu appeared, he looked around the main hall curiously. Looking around, he completely ignored the master yin-yang sitting in the main hall. You two little guys, stand still for me. Yin-yang laughed and cursed angrily. The two little guys quickly stood upright, but there was no fear in their eyes at all. They are not even afraid of their true bodies, let alone their clones. But it's not that the little ones look down on the clone. To them, no matter the clone or the real body, they are actually the same and they all belong to Jia Yan. You are now my true disciples. You should also be aware of the situation outside. Next, please don't irritate your fellow brothers and sisters of the yin-yang sect too much. Okay. On this day, the sect leader Yin-yang, who returned to the yin-yang sect from the outside world, introduced two little sisters who came from unknown places to everyone in the yin-yang sect. These two are totally kids. Regardless of their physical size or signs of life, anyone in the yin-yang sect except for newborn children can call them junior sisters. However, the talents and strength of these two little ones really shocked the disciples. At a young age, not necessarily 20 years old, he has reached the starry sky level. The other one is more exaggerated and feels about the same size, but her strength is even more unfathomable. No one knows how strong she is. Even the disciples, who are the strongest on the surface, only looked at her carefully for a long time. He shook his head solemnly and said, "This junior sister Edisha, is very strong." Yes, Edisha is very strong. The little fish is also very strong. Contrary to the yin-yang sect disciples, the two little ones were running around in the hall with familiar laughter. Wow, it's so big. They are all very big, but their strength is not that great. The two little ones, even after becoming superstars, have not suddenly grown in size. They are still as small as ever. Moreover, on the alien planet, the creatures are huge. There are several disciples several kilometers in the hall, and they seem to be swimming in the mountains. Yes, so unhappy. Master, are they also your disciples? A slight smile appeared on Yin Yang's unchanging face, and he nodded. He had no intention of avoiding his disciples. Yes, they are my disciples, my true direct disciples. A true disciple. The meaning of these words made the 6 disciples look unnaturally shocked. From the beginning, they knew that Jia Yan accepted them as disciples, all as named disciples. They didn't know the identity of the registered disciples at the beginning, but over the decades, the yin-yang sect has grown according to Jia Yan's plan. They have long understood that the so-called registered disciples are actually just the master's general approval, but they are not cultivated as real disciples. Identity of. And these two little carrot heads are actually master's true disciples. For a moment, eyes of surprise, envy, and even some jealousy glanced at the two little girls who were laughing and joking. Editha and the others flew up. Master, I want to know how strong Master's true disciples are. As the youngest direct disciple of the yin-yang sect, Unicorn stood up, with a pure white body and thunder and lightning flashing on the top of his horn. Okay, your strength is about the same as Xiao Yuer's. Let Xiao Yuer compete with you on a few moves. But she doesn't have much experience against the enemy, so be a little more merciful. Good. Beast looked at Edisha, but inexplicably, after feeling the strength of Edisha, he shuddered all over, and couldn't even think of a fight. Instead, he stared at her with an extremely calm gaze. Live Xiao Yuer. Xiao Yuer was not afraid of anything. She followed Beast to the center of the hall. The two brats are not big. Although Beast has reached the middle level of the Venerable, he is only over 100 meters tall. He is probably still too young. In comparison, the little fish, which is over 1 meter tall, looks like a fly. The little pink fish blows bubbles while flying, looking elegant and graceful. Junior sister Yuer, right? You are a star level, and your level is quite different from mine. I won't go all out, but I want to know the level of Master's true disciples, so I won't be too arrogant. You be careful. In fact, the beasts don't really want to fight. In fact, for such an opponent, it would be best for second senior brother Biha to come up, after all, those are the ones with similar strength. But as the youngest disciple of the yin-yang sect, it is understandable that he would make demands at will. The second senior brother is a bit ungrateful when he comes forward. I am afraid that the master's sense of these disciples will be reduced. Okay, this is Xiao Yuer's first fight, senior brother, be careful, Baba. First. Beast's expression was a bit weirder. He finally couldn't help but ask, senior brother, you will definitely be careful. Junior sister Yuer, how long have you been practicing with the master? The little fish tilted its pink head, as if it was difficult to remember anything, and then picked up its fins and said, 1, 2, 3, 4. After calculating for a long time, her eyes lit up. Xiao has been practicing with the master for a year, and Xiao is tired of it. Bah, bah, bah. 1 year. Real or fake? Even Beast, who claimed to be the most talented person in the yin-yang sect, suddenly changed his eyes. He asked in disbelief, 1 year, what was your strength before you followed the master to practice? No, Xiao Yuer went to school before. School was fun. At this moment, all the people present in the yin-yang sect fell silent, and then looked at each other in shock. 1 year. Cultivation to the starry sky level. What a magical speed this is. Everyone's hearts became bitter. The being who was jealous just now is even redder in the face. If they have this kind of talent, why not worry about Master not accepting them as his direct disciples? But the problem is, they don't have such talent. Okay, let's get started, Beast. Although your talent is strong, you have to know that there is a stronger among the stronger. Xiao Yuer may not even be the strongest. I do this because she fits my path. For her own sake, I accepted her as my direct disciple, so you must not be careless. Yes. When Jia Yan spoke out, Beast quickly restrained his contempt with a solemn expression. Even such talented disciples are only accepted because they suit their path. Beast and the others had many thoughts in their minds. Could it be? The master's strength and identity are even more amazing than they imagined. Xiao, you don't have many chances to have disputes with others. Now just follow what the teacher said. Jia Yan gave instructions to Xiao Yuer in front of everyone. The dash method I taught you last time, coupled with the power of the magic weapon, the 3-step bubble, this is your basic fighting method. Do you understand? Okay. Originally, Xiao Yuer was still ignorant. She didn't even know how to fight with people. After listening to Jia Yan's instructions, he immediately entered the situation. With a pop, Xiao Yuer entered the subspace. Subspace talent. What a fast entry into subspace. What a subdimensional talent. Everyone lost their voice again as they watched the little pink fish dive into the subspace and perform the break-in method taught by Jia Yan again and again. The speed at which it entered subspace was simply speechless. They don't know that most of the time Xiao Yuer spends exercising her subspace abilities is within the 2 giant stars. Even the subspace of the giant stars can be entered. The subspace of the outside starry sky is not just a fantasy like her family's magical weapon. Just when the beast's expression changed drastically, the subspace in front of him split open, a small pink fish came out, and a huge hammer appeared from the subspace. The hammer yin and yang magic weapon was originally used by Leda. Later, Edisha was going to go. Seeing that Edisha had it, Xiao Yuer also pestered Jia Yan to get one that was almost the same, which was the level suitable for her to use. That's it. Yin-Yang Dao magic weapon. The moment he saw the magic weapon, the beast almost felt like it was dead and retreated violently with a flash of light. As a member of the Yin-Yang sect, he naturally knows that if the Yin-Yang sect has any foreign objects that defy the heavens, it must be something like a magic weapon. Sometimes, the magic weapon produced by a powerful magic weapon maker can definitely allow the user to fight beyond the level. No wonder the master thought that he might capsize, because this little junior sister had a magic weapon that the master had personally refined. This magical weapon is different from ours. Clang. The big hammer hit the palace, causing cracks in the palace to bloom in all directions like spider webs. People grimaced at the sight. Is the combat power of such a starry sky level so exaggerated? In order to show the foundation of the Yin-Yang sect, they deliberately spent a lot of money to purchase the hall materials from many places at high prices. Let alone the starry sky level, Even some venerable level people wanted to crack the ground. So easy. But this little kid almost blew up the hall with one blow. Is this kind of fighting ability really a star? Three-step bubble. The little pink fish screamed in a milky voice, and then three distinctive bubbles popped out of her mouth. The bubbles she usually spits out are of various colors, but these three bubbles are different. They are three bubbles of white, red, and black respectively. People from the yin-yang sect can clearly detect that there are extremely terrifying positive and negative forces of yin-yang dao in the bubble. These powers are firmly locked in the bubble by some unique balancing technique. As long as it attacks the enemy, it will probably be a shocking blow. Beast's expression turned even uglier. The little fish took 2 steps forward, one bubble at a time, and shot it towards the evading beast. For the first one, Beast stepped forward with a front hoof and collided with Bubble. However, a huge explosion resounded through the sky, causing him to take another 3 steps back. Then came the second one. His eyes were about to burst, and the horn of electric light and flint directly above his head flashed, shooting out an electric spark. Crackle! Boom! The whole hall was shaken again, and arcs of electricity exploded in the space. Both the bubble and the arc were extinguished. But Xiao Yuer seemed to have a good time, not losing her sense of proportion at all, swaying her pink tail, and taking another step, approaching the beast, and took the last one, which was also the most powerful black bubble. Bubble, directly use the fin to throw towards the unicorn. Thunder and lightning anti-magic weapon. After fighting this blow, Beast was already in a state of despair. He no longer thought that this junior sister was a little person who was far weaker than him. A shocking aura burst out from the horn above his head. The horn actually had a metallic color. It turns out that Beast found his second senior brother to refine a unicorn magic weapon of yin and yang. Normally, this magic weapon cannot show its original appearance. It is invisible on the horn. It will only show its appearance when the battle is urgent. At this time, 2 electric arcs exploded in front of the horn. One is forward and the other is reverse, one is a white arc and the other is a blue arc. The 2 combined forces suddenly turned into a huge electric arc with extremely amazing power, hitting the black bubbles. Air waves were set off in the air, and the little fish's pink body was thrown backwards by the force of the explosion. It hit the ground a few times, bounced back very elastically, and bounced several more times before taking it with it. He got up from the ground crying. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3063. Beast was also shocked by the shocking force and retreated violently, and there were even a few traces of injuries on his body. You know, he has experienced many battles in the yin-yang sect's defense situation in the past few decades, but now he is not affected at all and wants to continue fighting. But when he looked up, he saw that the little guy was already crying on the ground, and he didn't know what to do. You two are good. Jia Yangjing Buobo's voice echoed down from the first seat. He was not disappointed, nor was he particularly surprised, as if he had expected things to turn out this way. Junior sister Yuer is indeed an astonishing talent. She is obviously a level higher than her, but the disciple still can't win. I have no face to face the master. Beast shook his head bitterly. No need to be like this, she actually only knows these few moves. Even if the fight continues, you will find that she only uses these 3 methods over and over again, so you deserve to win. Jia Yan said, but obviously, this kind of comforting words could not appease the beast who was flattened by the greater level. Other yin-yang sect disciples also felt that the world was unreal. Brother Master, Adisha also wants to fight with that one. Suddenly, as if giving support to Xiao Yuer, Adisha flew up from Xiao Yuer, pointing at Aobin and shouting loudly. Jia Yan looked at Adisha with some surprise. This little guy usually doesn't show his demands on such important events. Even though she can be quite naughty at times, As far as Jia Yan knows, those are just small pranks or trivial things that she self-judges to be insignificant. Expressing one's emotions in such a situation is not like a life reincarnated by Ji Brain. But Jia Yan quite liked seeing her change. Ken. Jia Yan spoke in words, and before Ao Pin came out solemnly, he added another sentence, causing Ao Pin to almost spit out blood. But I am no match for you, so be careful not to hurt anyone. Ao Pin looked at the master with a strange expression. Xian thought, you don't trust your apprentice too much. After all, I am also at the star level. With the advantages of magical weapons and yin and yang dao, not to mention defeating the galaxy level, ordinary star peaks may have the power to fight. This is actually the case. Despise. But the little guy opposite is indeed a bit weird. Ao Pin said nothing and looked at little Edisha flying in front of him. Everyone became solemn. The atmosphere felt like it was about to collapse. After all, this is a battle between stars, and the battle between the two sides must be earth-shattering. As for why not change places? After all, Master Yin and Yang is here, and with his old man here, he is still afraid that he will not be able to smash the hall to pieces with a mere star level. Jia Yan thinks that he already values Edisha quite a lot. Otherwise, why would he remain silent when Edisha silently transformed into the same status as Xiao Yuer? In fact, it was Jia Yan who acquiesced in Edisha's status as a personal disciple. It's just that she didn't say it openly, and her status may even be higher than that of Xiao Yuer. All the reasons are because Edisha is not only smart, but also has considerable talents. Although she may not be particularly outstanding in Onmyedo, her terrifying calculation power gives her top-notch judgment and calculation ability in battle, which is extremely amazing in actual combat performance. Secondly, what is even more surprising is that Edisha's talent in the array is absolutely terrifying. Even Jia Yan himself doesn't know what Edisha's strength is now. Anyway, every time the master of the formation doctor talks about the theory, she can understand it every time and put it into practice immediately. Some of Jia Yan's theories on the combination of yin and yang dao and formation dao were proposed by Edisha. Although Edisha is strong enough and has magical weapons, Yeopin also belongs to my disciple. I believe his fighting ability is not weak. Let me see how strong Edisha is now. Jia Yan thought silently, staring at the battle situation. Please. Edisha and Ao Pin exchanged greetings. The two sides are not enemies, and there is no hostility, but this does not mean that they are not dignified. This is a battle between the two major systems of yin and yang, or the systems are not absolute, it is a dispute between two different factions. On one side are the geniuses who have zeroed out the numbers of Xiao Yuer and Edisha, and on the other side are the entire yin-yang sect. From both sides, it was clear at a glance that Editha and the others had too much talent, but the yin-yang sect was the most powerful sect, and there was a reason why they couldn't lose. The final face fell on Ao Pin. This little girl looks gentle and quiet. She should be very unaccustomed to fighting. She is similar to the one just now Ao Pin judged, then his eyes moved, and he stepped into the explosive power of yin and yang dao. Ao Pin's unique combat power is reflected in the advantage of yin-yang dao, which is his terrifying speed. The muscles in both legs are knotted, and with the blessing of one positive and one negative force, the speed can be more than twice as fast as before practicing yin and yang dao. The moment he strikes, it's a killing move. Anyway, the master is by his side, so he doesn't worry about accidental injuries. Buzz. Edisha, who was judged to be quiet by the test, was unfazed, her bright eyes flashed, and she suddenly gave up her little hand. Jia Yan was so shocked that he almost stood up from his chair. It turned out that the fingers between the little girl's palms shot out blue circles one by one, and were fused with the power of yin and yang dao. This kind of breath was very similar to the power of the formation dao that Jia Yan used to kill the domain lord before. Sure enough. This little guy has come this far. Jia Yan's face was filled with surprise and uncertainty, and then he smiled slightly. Good guy, he originally thought that Aditha's flaw was that she used a body in the virtual world, and her talent had inherent flaws. Even though her current strength seemed to be improving rapidly, she should eventually reach the end of the galaxy level, and maybe even can't even reach the galaxy level. Those with flaws in their destiny will find it difficult to achieve anything. But now it's different. Edisha has mastered the power of Yin-Yang Dao and the Formation Dao. By chance, she followed Jia Yan to the North Star and the South Star, all to search for ways to increase longevity and increase talents for her family members on Earth. In this way, she was benefiting from a side attack. If the method of engraving formations on the genes and enhancing talents is effective, even this little guy can change his direction and reap the benefits, thus enhancing his talents. In this way, the road that Edissa can take will be extremely far. What's even more frightening is that because of her character and ability, she now has an advantage that even Jia Yan can't master. The extent to which she can achieve in the future is beyond even Jia Yan's imagination. Haha, it's unintentional. In this case, I'm really looking forward to seeing who is stronger than the other among these two little guys in the end. Jia Yan looked at Xiao Yu'er and then at Adisha, anticipation flashing in his eyes. He didn't have the slightest sense of crisis or anything. Because reaching his level is almost the top that a strong person can reach. Going higher is something that cannot be described by talent or anything. It takes amazing perseverance and opportunity to continue on a deeper path and eventually be promoted to a level above the Territory Lord. It would be extremely difficult for the disciples to copy Jia Yan's growth path. He might be stuck at the Territory Lord or Senior Territory Lord level, and even his current level would be difficult to reach. This is. Aopin has never seen the power of formations, but he has listened to Jia Yan's basic theories on the power of formations recently. At this time, when I first saw that the little junior sister in front of me could actually use the power of the formation, and the effect was very similar to the legendary master who killed the Domain Lord level, I was stunned and almost couldn't react. Fortunately, he is a man who has experienced many battles after all. For a moment, he subconsciously dodged away. Half of this chapter is anti-piracy, please come to cheateon.com to subscribe. Beast was also shocked by the shocking force and retreated violently, and there were even a few traces of injuries on his body. You know, he has experienced many battles in the yin-yang sex defense situation in the past few decades, but now he is not affected at all and wants to continue fighting. But when he looked up, he saw that the little guy was already crying on the ground, and he didn't know what to do. You two are good. Jia Yangyujing Buobo's voice echoed down from the first seat. He was not disappointed, nor was he particularly surprised, as if he had expected things to turn out this way. Junior sister Yu'er is indeed an astonishing talent. She is obviously a level higher than her, but the disciple is still unable to win. It is simply shameless to face the master. Beast shook his head bitterly. No need to be like this, she actually only knows these few moves. Even if the fight continues, you will find that she only uses these three methods over and over again, so you deserve to win. Jia Yan said, but obviously, this kind of comforting words could not appease the beast who was flattened by the greater level. Other yin-yang sect disciples also felt that the world was unreal. Brother Master, Adisha also wants to fight with that one. Suddenly, as if giving support to Xiao Yu'er, Adisha flew up from Xiao Yu'er, pointing at Aobin and shouting loudly. Jia Yan looked at Adisha with some surprise. This little guy usually doesn't show his demands on such important events. Even though she can be quite naughty at times, as far as Jia Yan knows, those are just trivial pranks or trivial things that she self-judges to be like this. Expressing one's emotions in such a situation is not like a life reincarnated by Ji-Brain. But Jia Yan quite likes seeing her change. Ken. Jia Yan spoke in words, and before Aopin came out solemnly, he added another sentence, causing Aopin to almost spit out blood. But I am no match for you, so be careful not to hurt anyone. Aopin looked at the master with a strange expression. Xian thought, you don't trust your apprentice too much. After all, I am also at the star level. With the advantages of magical weapons and yin and yang dao, not to mention defeating the galaxy level, ordinary star peaks may have the power to fight. This is actually the case. Despise. But the little guy opposite is indeed a bit weird. Aopin said nothing and looked at little Edisha flying in front of him. Everyone became solemn. The atmosphere felt like it was about to collapse. After all, this is a battle between stars, and the battle between the two sides must be earth-shattering. As for why not change places? After all, Master Yin Yang is here, and with his old man here, he is still afraid that he will not be able to smash the hall to pieces with a mere star level. Jia Yan thinks that he already values Edisha quite a lot. Otherwise, why would he remain silent when Edisha silently transformed into the same status as Xiao Yuer? In fact, it was Jia Yan who acquiesced in Edisha's status as a personal disciple. It's just that she didn't say it openly, and her status may even be higher than that of Xiao Yuer. All the reasons are because Edisha is not only smart, but also has considerable talents. Although she may not be particularly outstanding in Onmyedo, her terrifying calculation power gives her top-notch judgment and calculation ability in battle, which is extremely amazing in actual combat performance. Secondly, what is even more surprising is that Edisha's talent in the array is absolutely terrifying. Even Jia Yan himself doesn't know what Edisha's strength is now. Anyway, every time the master of the formation doctor talks about the theory, she can understand it every time and put it into practice immediately. Some of Jia Yan's theories on the combination of yin and yang dao and formation dao were proposed by Edisha. Although Edisha is strong enough and has magical weapons, Yaopin also belongs to my disciple. I believe his fighting ability is not weak. Let me see how strong Edisha is now. Jia Yan thought silently, staring at the battle situation. Please. Edisha and Aopin exchanged greetings. The two sides are not enemies, and there is no hostility, but this does not mean that they are not dignified. This is a battle between the two major systems of yin and yang, or the systems are not absolute, it is a dispute between two different factions. On one side are the geniuses who have zeroed out the numbers of Xiao Yuer and Edisha, and on the other side are the entire yin-yang sect. From both sides, it was clear at a glance that Editha and the others had too much talent, but the yin-yang sect was the most powerful sect, and there was a reason why they couldn't lose. The final face fell on Aopin. This little girl looks gentle and quiet. She should be very unaccustomed to fighting. She is similar to the one just now, Aopin judged, then his eyes moved, and he stepped into the explosive power of yin and yang dao. The unique combat power of Aopin, one of the advantages of yin yang dao, is his terrifying speed. The muscles in both legs are knotted, and with the blessing of positive and negative forces, the speed can be more than twice as fast as before practicing yin and yang dao. The moment he strikes, it's a killer move. Anyway, the master is by his side, so he doesn't worry about accidental injuries. Buzz. Edisha, who was judged to be quiet by the test, was unfazed, her bright eyes flashed, and she suddenly gave up her little hand. Jia Yan was so shocked that he almost stood up from his chair. It turned out that the fingers between the little girl's palms shot out blue circles one by one, and were fused with the power of yin and yang dao. This kind of breath was very similar to the power of the formation dao that Jia Yan used to kill the domain lord before. Sure enough. This little guy has come this far. Jia Yan's face was filled with surprise and uncertainty, and then he smiled slightly.